Hey everybody, it says it's going live. Apologies on the slow start there. Dave and I were actually having a little bit of a chat. I'm having my own Mike Medano card controversy, so to speak. More to come on that. I need to get some more details, but it was kind of interesting. I had to show Dave the cards. I thought it'd be kind of fun. By the way, one thing we may end up talking about it a little bit more as we go along, but I'll let everybody know just to just to let everybody know a little bit. Looks like there was a bit of delayed reaction on the audio, so we'll see. I was just saying to everybody, sorry about the delay there. Dave and I were just having a little chat. I may, we'll see if there's a little bit of a delay as far as something that I was looking into. I saw an eBay auction that may have, there may be two one-of-ones out there for a card that will be left to the imagination a little bit. And that's kind of something I got to look into and do some investigation of. So first of all, Dave, good evening. How's it going today?
Not too bad, Carlos. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I've been having a little bit of fun. We may end up having a little conversation about some YouTube and sports card content controversies, and we'll leave that up to everybody. I know a few people did reach out to me, including yourself. But one thing I will say is that I was watching the double feature with Jeremy on Sports Card Live and then the after hours as well. And I know that a few of you who are occasionally on here on the live stream, when somebody had the audacity to mention Medano, I saw that they were saying, "Where's Carlos?" I was actually trying to catch up. It was funny because yesterday I had a toothache while the original thing was airing, and it was driving me crazy. I actually went to go take a nap. I couldn't even, like, I actually had to lay down and take a nap. So I did catch up on the show. I watched it at like 2x speed to get caught up on Josh's part all the way to the end, and then I started watching Chris's part. But maybe I was about 45 minutes or an hour behind. So by the time I caught up, I saw those references because they were talking about how what's it called? How there was a sudden surge in the Medano PSA 10 O-Picchi premiere. And what I thought was hilariously funny was that I did catch that and I saw it. And that's why I put in a little comment. I said, well, like the force, I sensed the disturbance. I was like, I saw that all-time highs. Wait, hold on. But it was funny because as soon as Jeremy called it out first, he said, it's like, Carlos's ears perked up. It's like, you mentioned Medano. But it took me a little while before I caught up to that part of the video. And then by the time I did, it was like, oh, Carlos. And it was part of it was common. Okay, so here we go. I was hoping, I knew that it would come. So first of all, let me say good evening to Paul, first of all. And then Bobby, you are banned. Okay. Yeah. Could be. And here we go. Oh, good old hockey. It took no time. I knew it was going to happen. I knew that the moment was coming, and I was ready for it. But so we'll talk about it here. So first of all, good evening to Stove. Yeah, and Brian. Good evening. All right. Okay. So let's get this one started, Dave. We'll come out hot. Why don't we let me give the quick rundown on kind of the basic here. And then one thing I was talking to Dave about is that sometimes as we go along, some of us know a little bit more kind of behind the scenes because we'll talk to some people and maybe they'll talk to us about certain things here and there. But what I said to Dave and kind of what I'm going to do is I'll tell you guys what I can in the sense that I'll talk about what's already out there, videos that have been put out there because that's for public consumption. I'll talk about what I've personally experienced. If I'm involved in it or I've been around it where I've gotten a chance to see it myself, I can speak to that. Anything else beyond that, that's not my place to say because it's not for me to air somebody else's dirty laundry. It's their own. But I'll give you guys a short version. What you guys saw, probably if you saw Ziggy Knows' most recent couple of videos, he's had kind of an ongoing feud with card ladder folks. And it goes back a ways. It's not like if some of you are just catching up on it. It's not new. To my best recollection, because if you go back a ways, Ziggy was a subscriber on Card Ladder at one point, and I can tell you that he was on the Discord for a while, and he's had his issues here off and on with it. But one of my bones in contention, and this is on my channel, so you can go look it up yourselves. This is on my channel. There's a video where I talk about, I'll see if I can find the exact one because I'll direct you to it. I don't mind you watching it because it's there. And I put screenshots, so Ziggy's thing is right on it. I've had my issues with him going in, and he likes to throw around a lot of accusations and things. And my problem isn't whether it's true or not, because I don't know. Some of them are open to conjecture. Some of them are speculation. And my thought process on it is, even if it is, the problem is the messenger. I can't take the messenger has no credibility with me. And part of the reason I can say that, and again, I'm speaking only to my own experience, is that I've had Chris on Card Ladder on my channel. I've had Josh on my channel. So I've had Chris on there a couple of times. The first time around was just going through, like, dissecting with a fine-tooth comb a bunch of things on Card Ladder, like really with a fine-tooth comb. Now that wasn't satisfactory for Ziggy, which is fine. That's okay. But, you know, then interview him yourself. You do it on your own time. But the point wasn't that. The point is, if it's not to your satisfaction, that doesn't mean a question wasn't answered. And this has always been a bone of contention that I've had with Ziggy personally, because he'll say, it's like, oh, you didn't let them answer the questions. And he's put that in the comments section of some of my videos, to which I reply right after is like, well, actually, if you go 30 seconds after where we supposedly didn't answer your question, the question was answered.
Mhm.
Now, a couple of options. Option A, you didn't understand the answer. That's fine. That's legit. Or option B, you wanted more details on the answer. It wasn't a satisfactory answer. It wasn't a complete enough answer. That's okay. Or column C, you actually don't think it was answered, even though it was point blank answered.
Mhm.
And this always seems to be a bone of contention. So my problem with a lot of Ziggy's points isn't that he doesn't make points. My problem has always been that you keep saying no one's answering, but then I can go back and see that people do answer you, and then you keep claiming you're not getting answers,
Mhm.
which immediately brings your credibility into question with me. Second thing, and this is again, maybe you're the wrong, maybe you've got the right message and you're the wrong messenger. Maybe that's the bigger problem here, because Ziggy is an administrator in the Facebook group for Sports Card Investor. Why is that a problem? Well, for a very good reason, and a very simple reason. If you are out there doing a crusade against their immediate competitor, what's the first thing you're going to think if you know that? You're going to say, oh, so I guess Jeff sent you out to go do this. I guess he's involved in it. Well, if you're Jeff Wilson and that's not true, that's not going to be great for him. He's not going to be thrilled with that, because it's like, it's a bad look for him. He presumably should be just focusing on his own business, which he probably is, but we don't know that. And I know for a fact Ziggy has, because I questioned that in that video. I go, so are you working for Market Movers? Is that your job? Because it seems like it. The amount of effort you're putting into this. And in the same vein, another thing that has concerned me so I'm putting out my concerns here. Another thing that's concerned me over time is that you try to play both sides of the fence. So on the one hand, you're a martyr that's being persecuted against. On the other hand, you put yourself in that position consistently, and you keep throwing things out that you can't substantiate. And you're saying, like, I'm providing all this evidence. It's like, actually, you're not. Your evidence is, circumstantial at best. You're trying to throw things out, and you're leaving out details, which I'm pretty sure you know. But then you leaving out details means that if you're doing it intentionally, it means you're trying to sway you're trying to basically build up your own argument. And that means it's a bad argument you're making. It's a weak argument if you have to embellish it, or if you have to present it in a way that's questionable, because I can immediately fact check you and go, okay, so this thing, my favorite one, and I'll give you a quick example. My favorite one is where he spends a lot of time complaining about, Josh has a course on collecting. Now, I've said a couple of different times, I think that's pointless. I'm not, I know the sports card landscape is more complicated today than it ever was. I totally get it. It's not that complicated, Dave. Like, I don't think it's so complex that it requires a course. However, do I have a problem with somebody creating a course? Not really. You know why? You have to do it yourself. You have to decide for yourself if you're going to do it. And if you're new to this thing, a good example I'll give you is a lot of YouTube. There's a lot of YouTube videos on different topics. I'll give you a good example. There is in my line of work, one of the things that I'll use from time to time are SQL queries. That's just to pull data and to do those kinds of things. You can find YouTube tutorials on that. SQL queries are pulling data from a database. It's a bit complex, but you can find YouTube tutorials on it. It's free. But people will take courses on how to do that. Why would they take courses on how to do that? Well, because even though you can get it for free, people are lazy, and sometimes they would like it structured in a certain way. So the same information that's available free can be structured then in a way that maybe helps you learn it a little better. It's up to you whether you want to do that. If you're more comfortable with, I can direct myself, well, then use the free video because it's free. Again, I don't think it's necessary for sports cards. I think that's pointless. Not a big fan of that. Okay, great. But do I care if he does it? No. I will say one of the other things that was his big smoking gun with it is that Chris was one of his testimonials. That's very true. Here's again, that is accurate. But the problem is that at the time that testimonial is, which by the way, you can pull by opening the video is on YouTube. If you open the timing of it, Card Ladder didn't exist at that time. So what it is a record that they had an association at one point. But if the guy decided to endorse it and then later on down the road they decided to start a business together, you can say, well, that's a little questionable. You could say, oh, maybe you should have pulled that testimonial because now you have this direct association. That's valid. That's a valid criticism, a valid critique. But you can't ignore the timeline. Like it doesn't. You have to include all the information, not just part of the information that works for you. Do you get what I'm saying? So if you want to build an argument, build your argument. But then after you build your argument, include the rest of the details. When you only give me half the details, and then I can go, it's like, you only gave me half the details. Why'd you leave out the other half? Because the other half weakens your argument, but you just left it out. But I know it's there, and I went to go looking, and it's there. So, yeah. And the other quick thing that I'll mention, the other thing that concerns me, again, these are my concerns, is that, so on the one hand, Ziggy wants to be like a police of the community. He wants to be saying all these things. Cool. That's fine. Okay, great. But then you're doing clickbaity titles. So you, and in that video, the last video he made, he says, oh, I want reach. It's like, well, good news is doing clickbaity titles will get you more attention. That may build you a bigger audience and more reach. So I suppose mission accomplished from that perspective. But it comes at the expense of credibility because it's weak. Again, you could actually be 100% correct, but you could tell me the sky is blue and I would have to corroborate it with 5 other sources because I don't trust your judgment. Your track record tells me that you will not give me complete information. So if you won't give me complete information, how can I trust anything you say? I'm going to need to see your ID if you are who you say you are. Yeah, do you want to chime in? I just wanted to lay out a couple of my concerns just so it was understood. And at the end of the day, I don't have a horse in the race because I don't care. So for disclosure, number 1, I subscribe to Card Ladder Service, but number 2, and Dave can attest, he's seen my videos. Do you want to talk about how many times I put charts on the screen?
Yeah.
Like, so it's not doing me any good. And I don't have an affiliate code, so I don't care. Both Market Movers and Card Ladder could go out of business today and I don't care. So from that perspective, it makes no difference to me.
There'll be 2 graphs, 2 pie graphs. Carlos without Mike Badano cards coming in, and it's just like a flat line for your smile. There'll be one with like a lot of Madanos coming in, and there'll just be a slight uptick of the smile and the edge of the lips. That'll be your graphs that you put up. But yeah. The one last night when I watched the After Hours with Chris, when he had his 4-part question or whatever, when he brought that up, Chris answered it. I mean, Jeremy, that's the longest I think he's let anybody just go. It was about like a 15 minutes.
You're not wrong, but please go on. Well, and I've teased Jeremy about this. Full disclosure, I have teased Jeremy about this. So it's a valid comment. Please continue.
When he got to the end, you can't track. He wanted every piece of data, every sale that was verified to be a part of Card Ladder or whatever.
Sure.
Guess what? You can't do that on Facebook because, as Chris put it, you can't just go in every fire sale post and verify this because there isn't the end game that Facebook cares about to be like, okay, here's completed auctions. They don't give a shit about that. They just, you want to put that stuff up, you can put it up. But at the same time, Chris was very thorough with his answer, and I was like, wow,
One other thing I'll add about that last piece is like, and I pinged Chris about that. I had a good chuckle when because he was getting by the last question. He was usually he has a very stoic veneer about answering a lot of questions. The last one he got downright snippy, and I was like, I'm here for this. I am here for the snippiness. I like the petty snippiness. I'm a big fan. But the thing is, like, no, if we take the question totally seriously, if we take that question totally seriously, you've alluded to it. You were saying exactly what I was thinking as well. But the other thing as well is that I could put a Facebook post that says, Ziggy Palfy rookie card, I want $1,500 your best offer. Dave posts back and says, yep, so yeah, I'll take that. Okay, sold. Is that a legit transaction? Because it says sold. It says we agreed to that, but you can't really validate that very easily. It's not like I said, like an eBay marketplace. A ComC marketplace, I've talked about this before with the meat. If you really wanted to have an even better data set, which would additional to as a supplement to it, It'd be amazing if you could tap into like the COMC sales, because that would give you some more data. But at least that's data that's in a database. So at least like when I sold something at COMC, then I can at least see what I sold it for, and I can see what I bought it for. So at least I've got a little bit of data to go with. I could potentially pull that data to trend. So that'd be kind of cool. That's doable. We'll see, Mike. I doubt it. Especially with Monday, we're getting back from holidays. I very much doubt that.
Yeah,
but Dave and I are perfectly capable of doing such a thing, but not on a Sunday evening. Not when we're getting started on this one. Not this Sunday, anyway.
No.
Yeah, maybe another time. We'll reconvene. If I start doing the Friday thing again, then we can talk, because on a Friday, I'm more inclined. It's at least a little easier for me to swing that. That's a little bit more possible. But the biggest point is that whenever you're doing that kind of thing, you have to be able to pull it and then extract it. If you can pull and extract, and I know that in the COMC example, you can extract that data. I can find out what I've paid for cards in the past. That's really handy information for me to refer back to sometimes. So at least they've got a data set. Facebook doesn't have that. If you do a deal on Twitter, can't do that. A deal on Instagram, can't do that. It doesn't matter what you posted it for. It doesn't matter if it says sold. That's not good enough. So I understood the question, but it's like, it didn't require any thought process. Like, you don't even need to know how card ladder works to be like, well, who would do that? Because if they could do it, market movers would try. Why not? Give them a market advantage. If you could extract that data, why wouldn't they try to do it too? And again, going back to kind of, I'll borrow your "and" again. Going back to the whole thing, if there's a live stream, and there have been a number of live streams that Jeff Wilson has had on for market movers, I don't see you asking the same questions. So again, if you want to scrutinize, I'm okay with that, but scrutinize both equally. Because prior to the most recent video, my thing that I caught was the video before that. It says how to manipulate a market, and then he listed it off, and he was obviously talking about card ladder, which is fine. That's okay. But what I got a kick out of it, and I've said this on my live stream, I said, well, the thing is, if I want to manipulate a market, or I want to show like a fake graph, or he put on there, it's like, well, don't show other, hide the other sales. It's like, no, you can pull the other sales by clicking a link. The link is there. Also, Jeremy said that point blank. Also, I've said that months ago. I almost take offense, because there's some folks that are like, oh man, Chris answered the question. He answered them on my stream months ago. I literally asked the same question. I'm not knocking Jeremy for it, by the way. He asked the question. People wanted the answer. It's like, I literally asked this question and got the same answer like 4 or 5 months ago. Damn it. But the thing is that the data is there. If you click on a link, it shows all the sales. And the thing is, in that live stream, I literally opened it and clicked on it and scrolled through it so people could see it. I actually did a screen share. I was like, bros, dudes, go watch my videos. I already did this. So that was there. That was the second one. And then the other thing was also that the question is like, well, hide this data to do that. It's like, yeah, okay, great. But the other piece of it is that, and this was a critique of mine of market movers. And again, it's not the end of the world. I understand why they decided to go with it. On market movers, now they may have changed the tool. If they have, please, someone feel free to correct me. At the time that I was playing around with it as part of my review, I can choose to exclude certain sales of it if I don't feel they're representative of whatever. So I, as the user, have the ability to control that. That's good in a way, because it allows me to scrutinize the data myself, be my own analyst, so to speak. So I'm not having somebody do it for me. But on the other hand, that also means I can adjust the chart to look certain ways. I can manipulate the chart. It's actually easier for me to manipulate the data, because you literally let me manipulate the data. Literally. Like, I can be like, oh, this chart doesn't look steep enough. We'll remove a couple of these, and now it looks like it's a straight uptick. Or remove these, and I can make it look flat. Why would you want to do that? Well, if it looks flat, well, maybe I have a justification for asking for offering a lower amount. It's like, well, look at this chart. Again, a chart without context. And this is something I've done in a video. I said a chart without context is worthless. I'm pretty sure I did use card ladder in 2 videos. One of them was to talk about an Albert Pujols card, because I just wanted to point out that it had set a new record high. And a second one, I intentionally showed one where I cut off what the card was. So I showed you a graph without the card. And basically my point was like, well, how useful is this? You don't know what the card is. So what difference does it make? It could be my 88 Greg Jeffries. You don't know. Because if I don't include that information, then this chart is a piece of data without context. I'm not a fan of that, because then what good is it? So both tools have weaknesses, just so we're clear. And that's always been my contention. Both tools have weaknesses. They are a tool to potentially help you in decision making. They shouldn't be the only thing you do, though. They should be part of a package of different things. You also got to use some judgment. If you're a veteran collector, you should know that you got to use some judgment too.
Mm-hmm.
Comps are there to help you, but they're not the final answer. Sometimes you got to decide for yourself what you're willing to pay for X card or Y. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that and a lot of the stuff, again, with mostly what we're looking for our collections, it's not a PSA 10 copy of something. Mm-hmm. Would we like to have some of those key rookies of PSA 10s if we don't have them? Sure. Mm-hmm. We're not looking for a Madonna to 25 or to Upper Deck 99 2000. It's got to be a PSA 10. No, we just want the raw copy. Mm-hmm. So in our minds, we can go back to what we know. We've picked up certain cards because we've been in this hobby long enough. Mm-hmm. And these tools, while they're tools, as you said, they're decent tools. Not something I'll ever use because I don't jump into the hot card market. Mm-hmm. You like to look at them a little more because you like to just sort of know what's going on with some of that hot card market. But again, it's to draw I think the newer people in, the people that get caught up with the fireworks, the glitz, the glamour, the overly produced videos and such, which again, there's going to always be a market for different stuff in every genre of any category we ever stumble across.
Yep.
That's just not for me. I mean, we'll know what we want to pay, maybe go above it because we're just like, we're not going to lose this because we haven't seen it before, and then pay too much, but at the same time, probably be pretty happy because we got the card we wanted.
Yeah. Now, one more quick thing I'll add, Dave, and this was something, and I want to reiterate it because it has been a while since I did those videos. If any of you ever do get a chance to go back and look at those old videos, one thing you're going to notice is when I finished, I did a comparison of the two. I did a video where I compared the two. And my conclusion at the end is I said the biggest issue I had with market movers is the price. I didn't think it was worth $50 a month. I thought if you're going to choose the two, I thought the $15 a month was more palatable. But I also said, if you don't need this data, you don't need either. Mm-hmm. So my point was like I don't recall if it was exactly this way, so I might be paraphrasing. But my overarching point was, for the majority of you, you don't need either. Mm-hmm. You can make do. 130 point is good. And I try to give credit where I can, and I question where I can question. And nobody's off limits. I try to be very fair about this. I'll question anybody. But in one of the answers, Chris did name off 130 point. He named off, I think, sportscards.com, which has a certain thing. I like Sell the Peak used to be a good one for me. It's still okay sometimes. Those are free. Mm-hmm. You can search completed auctions and stuff. And sometimes you can get like what those best offers are. Sometimes it'll show correctly. Sometimes it won't, but those are free. They cost you nothing. You can go and check it up and look it up yourself. And if you can find the appropriate auction, you can at least get a little information. It's meant to help you, but again, you can't beat the price. No, it's free. So you don't have to get any of these tools. If it's not useful to you, then my suggestion is don't get either. Don't buy any of them. So my job isn't to sell you on it because my job isn't to sell you on it. I don't gain anything by it. Now, the other point though that you made is that those of us who have been around a little while, we usually have a pretty good gauge on where it is. For me, it is good to know kind of where certain things are moving. But one of the biggest overarching points where I don't like either tool is that I think it changes the way people view certain cards, and they rely on the tool too much. And if you rely on the tool too much, it influences your behavior, which in turn creates its own inflationary action on some of these cards. Maybe what I'll probably do is I'll go into this again because I did a feedback loop video. I literally called it feedback loop. It's in the title there, explaining this general concept. I might have to bring that back and be like, okay, let me explain this again, maybe a different way, just because it feels like this part's been forgotten because I did already talk about this. But maybe I'll be more specific. It might help being a little more specific. But that's the bottom line, though. As far as that drama is concerned, it is drama. And I'll be honest, it's entertaining. I had you pinged me and a couple of other people pinged me about it. It was fun. I won't lie. I won't say, like, we all like to rubberneck in this situation. Like, we're just like, we're not directly involved. Hey, you know what? It's all good. It's all good. But we got to be fair about this. We've got to understand kind of where it is. And you've got to understand also that there is more than one side to these stories. We are only getting a piece of this. Mm-hmm. So let me grab Victor's comment here. Yep, subscribe to both. Takeaways, you don't need the data. And that makes sense, Victor. It's not, if you don't need it, yeah, VCP, yep. So that's the thing though. If you don't need it, good news. I can save you $15 or $50 a month. Don't use either. I've saved you some money. Congratulations. Good evening, Bob Lewis. Glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, we try to be as honest as we can. I thought the timing was perfect because I asked Dave to come on, and then this thing came down, and I was like, "Oh, Dave's the guy I need for this situation." It's better to have somebody else who's also kind of in the same. I do tend to favor the collector side of it. That is more my lane. That's where my show is always going to contrast with Jeremy's, and this is neither good nor bad because I was chatting with Jeremy earlier, and we support each other's channels and we get along well because I think his show has a good place in the hobby. I think there's a place for it. Mm-hmm. This show has a different place in there. So it's like, but they can be complementary. They're not conflicting. So that's why I'm more than happy to watch these interviews because you're going to get certain pieces of information. Absolutely. Or Ziggy Palfy cards, Paul. Ziggy Palfy cards. Exactly. Yeah. The two tools would be 65 a month together. That's right. Yeah. And Brian goes in here. Don't use any of the data performance. Use eBay at 130. It takes longer, but I get there. Yeah, absolutely. It does. Now, Brian, I see also, by the way, I do check. And when I check these videos, I also check the comments. And I know someone, Brian, is very supportive of the drama channels. I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm not knocking you, Brian. You do you. If it's entertaining you, then that's all good. But I like I said, my big takeaway from the whole Ziggy thing is, look, if you like what he's saying and you believe in it, that's fine. But then at least do the minimum amount of diligence on who you're getting this information from. And then maybe do your own research if you're going to take it. Take it at face value. Take what I say at face value. Take what Dave says at face value. Take what Ziggy says at face value. And at least do a little digging then if you want to have a defined opinion on it. I try to stick to, if I have an opinion on something, I try to at least provide some backup for it. I've seen enough where there's enough inconsistencies for me, and I've shared a few of my concerns with Dave offline that we're not going to talk about here. I've seen a few things that that concern me. And they beg to question the source. Yeah. No, it's Mike, when you talk, we're basically talking about our buddy Ziggy, because if you go back and look at some of the titles, like the titles themselves give it away. One of the end of the title was like, did Chris threaten me? I go, well, if it is, then you've got a very flimsy case and no lawyer will take it. I heard exactly what he said, and I watched the clip and I go, okay, look, if you really want to push the interpretation, you could try, but number one, a lawyer won't take it. And number two, since you weren't named specifically, and at best you're being alluded to, unless he like identified you and gave like a visual description where we can assume it's you, then you're assuming it's you. And again, a lawyer wouldn't take that case. I'm just saying.
Yeah, if you would have come out and said Ziggy, not Palfy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and the thing is, I get the idea, but it's also not the first time Ziggy's jumped off the gun, and he's pulled a video in the past where he jumped the gun and accused somebody of threatening his family, and he pulled that video. Yep. So it's the boy who cried wolf a couple of times already. That's a fact. Yeah, and it's all good, Brian. That's what I say. I'm not knocking it. But I just chuckle because I'll look at the comments. I'll see who's in there. But sometimes I get a little disappointed because a lot of folks are giving it a lot more credence. It's like, well, at least do some diligence, guys. If you want to give it credence, that's fine, but do a little diligence of where you're getting this information from and decide for yourself, because at the end of the day, I don't care if you believe me or not. I'll give you what I got. This is what I got. And like I said, I talked to some folks and there's more that I'm not going to air because it's not for me to do. It is not my place. And I wouldn't be any good. I wouldn't be any good if somebody told me something in confidence and then I immediately jump on a live stream and just like blah.
Yeah.
Like, well, then why would you ever trust me with anything?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, all good, Brian. I appreciate it. Good evening, 4-leaf cards. Having a great night so far. We've been enjoying ourselves. So yeah. So as far as that piece is concerned, I would say that's kind of the main thoughts. What I'll leave it here is, guys. So I'm ready to kind of leave this topic. We can talk about it more if you want to, but only if you have specific questions. Is there anything specifically you guys would like to know, or maybe something that caught your eye or concerned you? We can talk, because they had two of them. They had the part with Josh first, part one, and then the part with Chris was part two. So is there anything about either one of those that you guys want to address or talk about? I leave it to you. I leave it open for you guys. Anything else that caught your eye, Dave?
His video titles, that was one thing, because I've been around here for 10 plus years, going on 11. And the one thing that you can do for a video title, if you want clickbait, you put rant in there for the card community.
Sure. Yeah.
And I've done that before, but I've had a legit gripe where I may have used some flowery language.
I would argue, Dave, you have much more incendiary videos on your channel. I actually was scrolling through, and I found one of your ones on Baseball Collecting in the past. It's like, and I watched it. It's like 6-minute long video, and I think it was you like pointing the camera at a beach or something.
Lake Superior.
Yeah, okay, Lake Superior. And then by the time I finished watching the video, it's like Dave seemed upset. I'm getting it was subtle. I had to read between the lines. Fortunately, I talked to you enough. That I've talked to you enough that that I was able to read the subtleties in your tone. Okay, so hold on here. I got this one. I like this one here. So what are your specific issues? And it said you mentioned them offline because the concerns that I had for that were specific stories that people gave me offline about dealings with Ziggy in question. So if you have a personal conversation where somebody is telling you something in confidence, then you don't talk about it online. That's why I said the majority of this part of the conversation, I'll speak to what's A, right now on a YouTube channel, which we can point to, or B, something that I personally dealt with that was directly with me. I can speak to that. Or C, something that again is verifiable out there. But if somebody says, somebody has a conversation with me where they had their own experiences, then I can't share that because it's not for me to tell. It's their story to tell, not mine. Does that make sense? So I get your question, Chris, and you know what? You're welcome to have this. That scrutiny is legit, but at the same time, like it would speak badly of you if someone told you something in confidence and then you go share it in a live stream. That's not cool. Like you just can't do that. So like I said, I've heard some things. That's all I can say, and I take it with a grain of salt too. But most of the sources I have been honest with me in a good chunk of the time, so I do trust those sources. But it's not my story to tell. That's all I can say about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we can speak to that because that video is on YouTube.
Or right after the card slipped into the fire. That was another one that was
exactly. So here we go. Because the actual conversation did happen, and I can confirm that I had a conversation. So it is still part of the card that I did deal with. But the specifics of the story, can't do it. Can't help you there. I appreciate that, hockey. That's just the way you got to do it. Your rant vid, yes. Fair enough. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Brian. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like if something is said in confidence, you can't really do that. And I would question anybody who actually did. But if you say, hey, I have had conversation with people where I have heard some stuff, that's legitimate. Sorry. Because that is factual. I have had conversations with people that have done, and people that I do trust their judgment on, but who didn't feel comfortable airing that out public. Sorry that they don't do it. My apologies. Good evening, Amit. Glad you popped in. Good times.
Yeah, and again, with me watching our good friend down in Texas, not Steve, the hockey oracle, you could see that pattern, and I talk to people it's the same as this situation. We have conversations away from live streams. It's like, again, it's not airing everybody's dirty laundry. Then nobody would talk to anybody, and when you'd be at card shows, you'd have just fist fights everywhere. But again, when they're a fat national, somebody wants to come after me. Nobody's coming after anyone anywhere.
Have you seen most of the people at card shows? Like that would literally be like a comic book convention. That would be the saddest fight in the world.
Oh,
in a lot of these cases, like, oh my God.
You'd have to have like about 40 EMTs off to the side with stretchers.
The amount of wheezing, it's like, what happened? He threw a punch and he's out of air. That'd be terrible.
He fell off his hover around trying to get up and backhand somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's very true. It would be hilarious and a little bit sad. I'm not gonna lie.
That would be one to videotape.
Yeah, actually, it was funny you mentioned that, Bobby, because I was literally explaining that. To somebody. I go, so unfortunately, the sports card YouTube world is nope. There's definitely that. That is reality. That is very true. Yeah, absolutely. Did you miss something? It's like, I don't know. The good news of meat is that it's right at the beginning of the video. So if you go later, you could probably rewatch it.
And
No, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It definitely happens.
If you watch it at 1 time speed, Amit, you can get through it in about 35 minutes.
I love it. So Steve's moving. Yep, very true. Yeah, that's fair, Mike. Yeah. You might be like, look, trust me, some of those folks is like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So what did I do? Who did I anger? Everyone I meet.
Yeah,
like,
come on now.
Everyone. I don't discriminate. Come on, bro. Get on this man. Oh my God, he finally learned. Good man. You shouldn't watch these YouTube videos at normal speed. What's wrong with you? These things are too damn long. No way. If it's live, it's live. But if you're going to watch a replay, watch it sped up. Come on. That's the correct move. You got to do it. Okay. So I'll take it that everybody's good on that topic then. That's fair enough. So aside from that, though, was there anything else that caught your ear as far as the actual conversations themselves?
Not really. I mean, it's a lot of the same stuff that's been said, which is it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to have like all these chapters in a Encyclopedia Britannica series of books. I mean, you can only talk about this stuff so much, and the maturation of the tool and whatnot, and what roads you're going down.
That's fair. It's a bit dry. If you're not interested in that space, it's a bit dry.
I
think that's fair.
And Josh, again, he's a smart guy. At the same time, I find his delivery more or less dull. It's monotone. There's not really I don't want somebody that's like the Tasmanian Devil or Yosemite Sam, just like getting all ramped up and like woo-hooing and flailing about. But I like a little excitement and like, hey, I'm talking about something I really love, and like, well, here's some cards.
I will say though that he is consistent about that. Like it's one of those things. Like, I think that is his personality. Although I will say, I think when I was having a chat with him, I think he was a little bit more animated. I think you also have to engage him in something that's interesting. Like because once you're kind of locked into, I'm going to answer questions about these specific topics, you kind of get in your zone. So it's one of those deals where if you get in kind of your zone, that's a more comfortable area. That's part of the reason I brought Dave on, Bobby, is I like having someone who will say what was really on their mind. I prefer that.
Yeah, that gets me in trouble quite a bit, but that's, again, I'd rather be honest than fake. So
no,
and I know there's a time to sort of smooth the edges and say it and deliver it. Most of the time, I bust through that door like the Kool-Aid man. So
yeah, that's right. That's fair. Sounds good. Is Charles here? I was just looking. Maybe I missed that. Maybe missed the comment. I'm just checking here. Looking. No, I don't see it. Maybe it's way at the beginning. Not sure. All right. Well, my bad if I missed it. I didn't see Charles here, but okay. Yep.
That was one he had, I think, near the end, or somewhat like a hobby regret, which I always like. I'm more negative in that sense. I don't want all the positivity and the flowery and thumbs up. I want more thumbs down and people throwing the eggs at me, not literally. But
I was told car stores were very violent places, Dave. Be careful what you wish for.
I know. I watched the convenience store across the street puts up a sign out of eggs, so could be trouble for me. When he had said, Josh had mentioned something about Jeremy had the regret question, and he parted with the PMG penny for the LeBron RPA. I'm guessing it's the exquisite, because I mean that's the creme de la creme. I had said, well, what at the time do you think you could have gotten rid of? Because I know you collect penny. What would have been something of comparable value, and have you gotten it back? It's like, I don't know, if I would have found heaps of money in my couch. Like, well, I agree. If that's very simplistic, I guess, to say, but with those questions, that helps bring others like me who are, I'm just like, I don't know. You've got a great name. Don't get me wrong. It's a wonderful name. Josh Johnson is.
I was thinking about that. I was like, yeah, you're the appropriate guy to talk about it. Let me grab a couple of these quick comments here real quick. So no, I appreciate that, Matt. Yeah, people need to be able to hear things without sugarcoating. Yeah, and we try to the best of our ability. That's what I said. Like there are areas we won't go because again, I do adhere to a code where if you there are times where people will talk to me because they understand that I will adhere to that code. And it's a very simple code. If you tell me something, hey, look, I'll tell you about this, but I don't want to talk about it any more than that. No problem. And I said, that's fine. If you tell me that, then that's where it stays. I'm not going to go further than that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go here. No, I appreciate that, Bobby. We always love having you around as well. This was a good question, actually. So quickly, I'll grab autograph guy. Yeah, so Paul was just correctly. It's like, yeah, no worries at all. No worries at all. I actually I used to have a keychain because never find, those keychains with names on them. My parents could never find one that said Carlos, so they did actually get me a Charles one. So I had one. I was like, but there's no part of my name that is Charles, but it was like, whatever. So I had a keychain with Charles on it for a while. So that's a good callback, actually. Unintentional, but it's a good callback. I like that. This is a good question, though. I like this. Let me think here. So this was the Doncic Prism PSA 10 card. And this is a conversation that Jeremy and I believe when they got to this part was Jeremy and Chris. I believe this is where this part came up. What was interesting for me, I don't agree with their conclusion. And here's what I'll say. Let me explain why. When it comes to this, conceptually, it's not wrong. But I'll look at it this way. If you say there's 15,000 copies, which is the current pop report for the PSA 10, and you say, well, there's more than enough demand. Yes. But I refer back to one of my favorite sayings. Demand is demand. What I mean when I say that is, it's the exact same for the market if one person buys 15,000 copies than it is if 15,000 people buy one copy. The result is actually the same, short term. The result long term is very different. Because if you've got 15,000 people that buy one copy, that means there's potentially a robust market for somebody that wants a second one. Mm-hmm. But if you got one person that buys 15,000, again, I'm exaggerating intentionally for effect here, just so you can see what I'm saying. If it's a much smaller subset of people hoarding them, the initial result is the same, but the long-term result is different because it only works if somebody else also then wants another copy. We don't know if that market exists. And Jeremy brought up the equilibrium, the graph of equilibrium. And I was going, that's a beautiful callback. I kind of wanted to, as he said that, I was like, let me go grab my micro econ textbook from almost 20 years ago and I'll pull out and I'll show you guys some equilibrium charts because I did economics back in the day. But the thing is, here's the thing about equilibrium. You have to establish what the market price is. Are there 15,000 people that will pay $2,000 a card? In theory right now, sort of. But if a couple of people have 100 or 200 copies or 50 copies, then do they have that market though? Or is it a case of these guys are holding it, hoping that that market materializes so they can sell it for $2,500, $3,000, $4,000? But if it doesn't, and the other people don't want to buy it for more, they already have their copies at 2,000, then that market actually isn't robust. Mm-hmm. And that's where Jeremy did the distinction with float, which is legitimate. But again, I'm back to, did somebody hoard it? And I don't have the answer to that because we don't know. We actually don't know. So I can't speak to that. But it is a problem. And that's the part that I question. I don't know the answer to that right now because it's what I said to you before. I think the majority of collectors are not in that price bracket. You can say, oh, there's millions of people that like basketball. True. Oh, there's, people in Asia, people in Earth. It's like, oh, that's true. And there's 7 billion people on Earth. Even if they all like basketball, they're not all going to buy a $2,000 card. It doesn't matter how much they want one. If 50,000 people, Dave, want a Bugatti Veyron, but don't have $2 million, it doesn't matter that 50,000 people want one because they can't afford it anyway. So they're not going to impact the market value. The only people that will is the people who can actually buy one, not the other people that want one and can't afford it anyway, unless you drop that price, which means it's no longer worth $2 million then. In order to sell it to somebody, it's worth less, and you got to adjust it down. So let me grab a couple of comments here. No, we appreciate that, Bobby. We try our best. Just trying to get through a couple of these comments here to get caught up as well. P. Ryan Collect. I've seen a little bit. I didn't see him crying over the 89 Billy Ripken card. I wonder what that's about. But he is a passionate guy. I'll give you that. I've seen a couple of P. Ryan videos where he did some rants. And I want to say he was ranting. I want to say it was Sports Card Investor maybe or some. I know he was ranting about something. But he's had a couple of videos now on Instagram. He's mainly where he does his stuff. I would love to see them uploaded onto YouTube though. I think it would take off quite a bit if they decided to do that. So let's look here. So for Brian, hockey is his fourth sport. Hockey is hot. Yep, to a certain degree, I would agree. So who should I be looking for now or in the near future for NHL cards? Here's the thing, Brian. If you really want to be safe and secure, you go for the big guys. Like honestly, if you want to be safe and secure, you go with rare, and you go with the big guys. That's really how you do it. So that would be probably the easiest way to go about it. That would be me.
Yeah, hockey is not a like baseball or even to an extent to basketball, like a prospecting sport. Like I did well with the Siakam stuff. I'm glad I sold last summer because he's had a rough start and so have the Raptors. But you can sort of hold on to some of those basketball lower tier guys, the late first rounders that are sort of in a developmental state, the second rounders that slipped. You can hold on to those guys, buy them. Well, you could buy them a few years ago low and just say, okay, put them in a box. I spent like $50 on 6 cards, 10 cards, a lot of numbered stuff, a lot of like prismy, rainbowy stuff. Just put them in there and don't even worry about it. That's what I did. And I was able to cash that in for a substantial chunk of money because I waited, and it's something that I don't need to immediately flip.
Yes. If you've got something that has growth potential, but you made a key point though. You were able to buy low.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm a big fan. You can do, if you're going to speculate, well, then buy as low as you can.
Mm-hmm. Go
more penny stocks than blue chips. Blue chips, you're already going to pay the high price, but they've got a better chance of appreciating. It may not be as much, but at least you get a start. And I can see that, and I can see the guys definitely gave a lot of good answers here. Real quick, I'll just grab here. So yeah, Matt goes guys who are proven, absolutely. Yeah. Canadian Carson says Pierre-Luc Dubois. Okay, that could be an interesting take on it. Here, I think the answer depends on if you're flipping now or if you're hanging on. Yes, 100%. That is that is astute. That is bang on. I think this is Ritchie. So if I'm right, Ritchie, let me know. I think because sometimes you'll get your name and then sometimes you get East Bangaden 86, and I believe that's Ritchie. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But then Matt also adds, Ovi, McDavid, McKinnon. Yes, absolutely. Like people like that. You can totally do that. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Good evening, Rich. Glad you're joining in. But that's reality. But that's very true. So let me grab this one here as well. Do you guys think the Laffy Young Gun is currently overvalued? So my short answer is yes. However, does that mean it's overvalued forever? No. But initially, the Young Guns now are overvalued. They're coming out of the box really hot. Because Young Guns for like big name prospects used to come out pretty hot, but not to that degree. No. Not like that. Right now, you've already priced in a lot of early movement right before, even at the time of the box. And you're already starting off with the big. Now, the good news is if you pull somebody and you're like a little iffy on it as that prospect, well, then you can sell it and make good money. Especially if you can buy especially if you can buy hobby or retail for retail, then it's okay. You're doing fine. If you pay secondary market, then you go. And this is related to the Luka Doncic one. 15,000 graded 10 now. What about in 6 months? Yep. And I'm still not completely convinced, to be honest with you, that the market exist right now? Yes. But even if Luka does a lot of what they're hoping to do, does the market move a lot when there's that many out there? Because if you're a collector and you've got one or two and you're happy now, you're no longer a buyer. Mm-hmm. So you're out.
The market.
Yeah, exactly. So if somebody's got what they need, well, like you're solid. You're done. And so those people don't. That's why I say, like, the amount of collectors. I think a lot of folks overestimate the amount of collectors that are in that price point right now, because they keep looking at like, oh, this person spent $50,000 in these cards. Well, guess what? Then they're probably not buying Luka Doncic. They're probably buying the RPA. Mm-hmm. They're not looking for the Prism base card. They're actually looking for the higher end ones then. So they're out too. What you're left with is the people in the middle who are trying to play like they're the big time, but they can't afford the really big cards. But this one is available in enough quantity that they want to do a lot of wheeling and dealing at that level. And this is true for Matt. It's like what happens though is the prospects right now, you are getting that. You're going to have a lot of prospects that could pan out, but then you're going to need some help. You're going to need them to show you and do some of those things. So right now, if you think Lafreniere is going to be good long-term and he has any kind of a slowdown in his first season and he doesn't immediately come out and score 30, 40 goals in his rookie year, you might be able to get him for a little discount in year 2. So there's a possibility. It just depends on whether you like him long-term and what your prospects are and feelings are short term.
And then if you pull one, I'd say hold.
If you pull one and you really like it, then yes.
Don't go looking on that secondary market and trying to buy one now, because it's just, there's a lot of them out there. Again, he could come out like a ball of fire and turn the hockey world on its head, but at the same time, there have been very few of those prospects the last 20 years that have been just absolutely balls out. Can't miss guys that first year. You can probably count in one hand how many of them have been around, but I mean, you don't want to drop that kind of money when you can, dare I say, use it on Paul somewhere. I know he's got the icon up. Invest in some sort of Hall of Fame rookie, a graded rookie, where again, that's, unless these guys commit murder, as we've said before, those are pretty, you want solid cards, the current stuff. You hope to hit that stuff in packs or in wax if you can find it for a decent price.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're able to get the guy that you think is good, and the problem is it's a crapshoot. Like it really is a crapshoot, and you're trying really hard to guess. I really do think, and this is just me, this is the angle I take on it. And I'll use Soto as an example because I like Soto, but I also like Vladdy Jr. out of the box. Now, Vladdy Jr. could still very well turn it around, but right now there's some issues. I like his natural talent. I like certain aspects of what I saw, but then once he got to the big leagues, I didn't like his work habits. That's concerning. Soto took a different approach where he's clearly working on his craft, and he just seems to be improving year after year. And looking at it as a baseball fan, I like his swing. This is where if you're a fan of the sport, it's helpful because you can maybe watch your player and go like, do you like what you're seeing? Do you like the practice habits? Do you like are they doing something sustainable, or are they doing something like if the wrong thing happens, they can be exposed?
Yeah.
Right now, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is a question. And I can tell you that fortunately, as people are kind of starting to anticipate baseball season, even though it's still a while away. He had a good run in Winter League, and some of his cards have started to creep back up. And I've got like 100 or 150 Guerrero Jr. cards, but a couple of them started to move up a little bit, and I was like, okay, so we're going to sell these. So for the first time in a while, I've actually sold some cards, and I was able to make enough where I made money on all those cards, which I was like, fantastic. But I bought the raw card, had it graded, and then I came back at 10.
Okay.
So it's like I did very well because I bought so low that I was able to then do well, and they lasted like a day. And I got super high offers compared to I put a high buy it now with best offer, and I got like 90% of my buy it now as the best offer, and I was like, I made 5 times what I paid for it, what I had into it. So I'm not going to complain. I can recuperate some of that, and I still have some nice ones in case he turns it around. I still have a couple of nice cards, but I may as well recoup some of my #investment, get some of that back, and well, great. Now I have some money set aside. I was able to pay my $1 billion to take my COMC order from its COMC prison, and hopefully it'll get here in a month or two, and then I'll have an awesome mail day. It'll be spectacular. But I was able to turn around, and I've got some money now set aside in my PayPal in case something cool comes up that I didn't have to get out of pocket. I was able to do it with cards I already had, and I sold them. That's a good turnaround. That's a good deal. That works.
Yeah.
So you can take advantage. So let me quickly grab a couple of these here. So Matt's saying, yeah, how many amazing players are cheap? Kopitars and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. The thing is, though, once they're no longer a prospect, then it comes down. And I included autograph guys here. He goes, I don't think May's going to go. I would be very shocked. I don't think the numbers say that's going to work. I really don't. No. I don't think that's going to work. Not November, maybe. November is a possibility, I think, but not right away. Now, Brian was asking this one. I really don't watch a lot of Jeff Wilson stuff anymore. I used to track it a little bit better, but it got so repetitive. Like, I can only take so many top 5 videos. Like, I tried to watch the stuff just so I could keep tabs on it. Like, oh, you keep making the same video over and over again. Like, I'm getting bored. And I watch this stuff to keep track of it, but I'm like, I can't. I just can't. Yeah, Steve says influencer try to manipulate. The thing is, yeah, Jeff Wilson in his own way is an influencer. How effective he's been with it, he does have a big audience. You can't deny that. So from that perspective, it's pretty good. I can't blame the autograph guy. Like, he's got to show better working habits. Like, that's the only way. Yep, needs to pump up all the young guns he has. Very true. There you go. And Paul's got he's got his picture there. Hashtag invest. Very important. It would be very funny, Mike. I would think about it, but there's two problems. Like, I'll take this seriously for 1 second. There's two problems. Number one, like, have you seen how much those boots cost? I'm not a fan. They're kind of expensive, especially if you're not actually doing something that makes money. If you're not actually doing so, like maybe if you leave a tip jar and people are very generous, it might be worth your while, but that's about it. You have to hope. And then live stream for the entire show. Yeah. And the second part is the internet there's crap. Like if you go to the convention center, oh my God, that internet's junk.
Yeah, and you figure everybody there is on their phone, their laptop, whatever they've got. Then it's not just one or two people. It's every table has probably 2 or 3 people at least at the table that they're at on the internet trying to look up comps, do whatever else. They're there. You can't fray and use that internet to portion it out through 5,000-6,000 people. How many ever are in the auditorium at the time or the convention?
Yeah. And the thing is, when you do the live streams, it helps to be hardwired. Like this is actually connected to an Ethernet cable from the modem. So for the most part, it stays consistent. But like the signal's bad in there. I'll get to that. Just going quickly through these. Today's was a big move. You should watch the video. I'll check it out. If there's enough going on there. I like Richie's comment here. Suggests I steam the championship flag. So you notice the folds. Yeah. Yeah. I actually have a steamer. I used it back in the day when I actually used to wear a suit to work. What an idea, right? Almost as good as the hoodie. Yeah. Yeah, 600 for the weekend. Yeah, that's about right. I think that's about right. But it's very expensive.
That's what I was going to say. That I thought Jeremy had mentioned that at the one back in June.
They're pricey, man.
The virtual for that was much less than the in-person one.
Very true. Very true. But yeah, Steve says if he had invested 500K in something, he would find ways to talk it up. Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
My issue isn't that he's talking it up, to be honest with you. My issue isn't that, because look, I can live with it. He's a businessman. At the end of the day, he's a businessman. So this is where people need to get off their high horse already. Look, there are lots of business people that are talking up their stuff. At this point, you should be used to it. It's like commercials. It's like whining about commercials. Well, then don't watch the commercials. If it bothers you. So most people, like at this point, they could be staring at the television and literally not see what the commercial is. That's why commercial ad time is actually overpriced now, because you're not actually paying attention. Your brain has adapted to ignore it. You could be staring right at the screen, but you're not even paying attention to it. Yeah, hotspots are limited, Mike. There's only so much you can do inside of that room with that much interference. But I don't know, maybe you could. I actually think if you go to like that main stage area, there's probably, I think they can hardwire it back there, because they got podcasts and stuff that do some streaming things. So I wouldn't be shocked if they had a way of connecting a cable back there. That's probably where you do it. Yeah, I don't think the national November, I'm definitely on board. Probably November. It might even be next year. We'll see. Yeah, if you had to hashtag invest in one of these prospects, who would you pick? Nick Suzuki, Kale McCarr, Capo Caco, or Ilya Samsonov? There's another Samsonov? That's hilarious. I love it. I don't know, man. I remember, didn't Nick Suzuki play for Guelph? I think he might have, because I remember Nick Suzuki a little bit. Could be mistaken on that. I'll look at him up while we're talking. Do you got any thoughts on any of those players, Dave?
I got to go with the forwards. I wouldn't go as big a presence as Cole can be down the road, and you look at that number one defenseman, that shutdown defenseman. I got to go with the forwards, just because, again, hobby wise, they get the hobby love, fairly, unfairly, whatever it is. Those are the guys. It's not like, man, I need to get those Rob Blake key cards. Nobody cares, which sucks. I mean, it's good for us if we see something we like and like, oh man, Rob Blake Atomic Refractor for like $15. So I'm all over that. But they just don't get the hobby love. You score a goal, just like you hit homers. The chicks dig the long balls. The chicks dig the goals. So
the thing though is how excited are you going to get for? Here's the thing. I have great respect for defensemen, because I think back to the days when I would when you would play fantasy hockey, and if let's say you're doing a points pool, keeping it really simple, what happens is if you're trying to win, you're sitting there like, I need somebody who can put up some points. But a great, like, I think back in the day, the heyday was the 90s and the early 2000s. So who was I looking for? I would get like a Sergei Zubov if I couldn't get the top guys, because at least he was consistent. I knew what I would get, 40 odd, almost 50 points. But if you get the top tier guys, Nicholas Lidstrom, because you knew he was good for about 60, 70 points a year. As from a defenseman, that's great. But the point is, if you get a defenseman who gets about a point a game, you're killing it. But that's not tremendously exciting, like from a hobby value standpoint. As a team, oh my God, if you've got a defenseman like that, you're doing great. In real hockey, as a team, if you've got somebody who can do that kind of offense and be a good defenseman, you're good to go. So I don't know. I'd have to look at a Kale. Like Kale's good, but he's a defenseman. Suzuki is a center, but he's not a high scoring one. He wasn't even a high scoring one in Guelph. Some of those guys would be tough to do. I really don't know. It'd be tricky.
It's like Tony Gwynn. He's got his fan base. Excellent hitter, but his stuff, again, if you put it against Griffey, you put it against Ichiro, you put it against A-Rod, you put it against Big Hurt, even like Randy Johnson or Greg Maddux, it's going to pale in comparison because, yeah, he batted 362, 370, whatever the case may be, but he didn't hit 35 homers. He looked like a lot of us look out there, but he wasn't McGuire, Bagwell hitting 50 home runs, and Stock just looks like a brick house coming through the door. I mean,
I will say though, when we're talking about Frank Thomas is a guy who could hit 340 or 350 and hit 40 bombs.
Yeah.
So it made him like extra scary. He goes, no, he may not hit quite the high average of Tony Gwynn, but like almost. And back on the 40 home runs as well, because he looked like a linebacker. He was massive. So like that with Frank Thomas, that's what made people like, oh my God, this guy. Plus, he's not like Chris Davis out there. Like he actually could hit for average. Like he was in his peak, in his prime. He's a guy who at least had a shot at a Triple Crown. To me, that's a big deal. I love guys who are in that level. So let me go over here. Just grabbing this one. So I believe I'm just trying to catch up on the comments, guys. So apologies. We were having a good conversation. I want to make sure I get through these. April should be April 2021. That's what we're looking at, Brian. As far as I can tell, we'll know because Jeremy will be squealing like a schoolgirl when the moment comes. We'll hear it off in the distance. He's very excited about this product. He wants cases, plural. Yeah, I have seen card cutters around. Mind you, Card Cutter is in the military, so he might be redeployed. Or what? Actually, wasn't he moving? He might have been moving.
California.
Sorry,
moving to California.
Yes, that's right. He was moving, so that would probably be why. That would be my guess.
I think he was over in Virginia, so he's moving across the country during a pandemic. So that's it's got to be a little bit of a logistical nightmare.
Look at that. So Mike's already got it all figured out. We get a table at the expo. Guests selling live streams. Oh my God. Yeah. So Mike's voting for Cabo Caco. Just quickly going through this here. Other performances before the NHL. Caco, some collection performance of World Genius. Fair enough. Okay. So he is a starting goaltender for Washington. Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Yep. So Brian says here, and just to be transparent, I like myself, he doesn't care about any of the big content providers. Yeah. No, that's fair. The thing is, there's nothing wrong with watching it. You definitely want. I watch it because it's good to get perspective and also understand what's out there. That's really what you're looking at. That's really where I go with it. It's you got to remember that that's the case, because remember that at the end of the day, I don't care how big a content provider they are. It's still their opinion. It really is. It's still their opinion. You can say it's an informed opinion, but then I say, okay, how informed is it? Like you got to tell me. Give me your reasoning, and then I can decide if what you're saying makes sense or not. That would be kind of my approach with that. And that goes with myself. That goes with what Dave is doing. That goes with what they're doing. Everybody, at least try to get the reasons behind it, and then you'll be better served. That would be my angle on it. I don't think Richard Matvichuk was a big point guy, Mike, if memory serves me. I don't remember him being, and I like Richard Matvichuk. That 98-99 team still has a warm place in my heart, but they were not an offensive juggernaut. They just weren't.
I'd like to pick up Scott Stevens because he wasn't in that super top tier. He's a notch below, and then you get a lot of penalty minutes. So you got to even that out too. You want somebody, but that's not going to kill you in the plus minus.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's fair. Yeah. So Matt's point here is very relevant here. Hobby hype is an all-time high right now, which it is. Hype makes those prospects cost time, which it does. Now they're trying to price it. Nobody wants to be caught unawares anymore. They don't want to they don't want to miss out accidentally on the big prospect that was like that suddenly like goes up 10 or 15 times because they oh, by the way, this guy was really good. Oh my God. No. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Brian says, no, I don't mind the questions, Brian. Keep asking. Feel free to keep asking because the questions keep the thing flowing. It gives us something to riff off of. The thing is that I want to give all of you credit. This chat has been going very well. The fact that I have to keep trying to catch up tells me that this chat is going, which is really helpful. And it gives Dave and myself some stuff to talk about. So that's fun. Yeah. Merchandising, Mike. So Mike, if you want to get this done, we might have to figure out some merch, clearly. So guys, you got to get the Insert Revolution merch going. Now, merch is the thing. We've talked about this already. Plus the meet and greet VIP packages. Dare we live the dream. I will say, I mentioned it earlier. The part that made me laugh the most about when some people were like shouting me out, I was going, in some ways it's good, and in some ways it's a curse to be associated with a player collection so much that as soon as they mention the name, they're like, hey, so-and-so. I'm like, oh crap. As soon as I saw that, I was like, crap.
They know that all too well with a couple of my guys.
That could work out badly for me. That could work out very badly for me in some ways. It's good in certain ways, but it's bad in certain ways. Yeah. So Matt says, Brian, I agree. It's important to be, it's kind of be unique in some way. Yep, absolutely. You got to have a little bit. Otherwise it doesn't work. So Autograph Guy lived in Dallas from 99 to 2003. That'd be the heyday for that. Practice were open to public. Yep, absolutely. Those teams are good though. Like in that time period was right in that golden time period where that team was a perennial contender. That team was good. Bob Lewis with the good hashtag, all merch matters. Fair, valid. One auto per. Mike, don't worry, we'll talk. We'll get these details ironed out, but it sounds to me like you're starting to formulate a bit of a business plan. I like where you're going with this. No, I appreciate that, Brian. Thank you. But yeah, I made it to the bottom of the comments. I did it. But no, I do appreciate that a lot of this content actually gives us stuff to talk about. That's the part I like, to be honest with you. Like, it gives us stuff to talk about, whether you agree with it or you don't agree with it. The Luka Doncic thing was interesting. The other piece that I thought was interesting. Now I'll bring this one up to you. Let me start off with a general question, and I want to get your take on this, and then we can play with this one a little bit. One of the things that Jeremy was saying, and I'm not going to knock it, but I do have questions. And this is something that I was thinking about at the time that it was mentioned. Jeremy was talking about how sometimes in an auction he'll put in what he dubbed a protection bid. That's what we'll call a protection bid.
Yep.
And he correlated it to like a reserve.
Yeah.
Now, let me give you quickly my angle on this, and then I'd like to get your take. I understand it. I can't co-sign on that. And here's why. A reserve, I'm okay with. Why? Because a reserve is transparent. A reserve is if you make the highest bid and it doesn't meet the reserve, then you didn't actually win. The transaction doesn't happen. So it's not a comp. A protection bid, which gets the bid up to an equivalent price to what you paid previously. Yes, his additional piece that he included was, well, if I win, I'm going to pay for it. But then I'm like, true, fine. But that's not, to me, that's not a valid transaction. It's not. The reason I say it's not a valid transaction is that you artificially bumped up the price to where it wouldn't have gone had you not interfered. Now, quick caveat. If, say, it's a card that's out of 10 and another one goes up and you bid it and win it at a price equivalent to what you paid for the other one, that can be a form of protection as well. But I consider that to be legit because you bought another copy. It's not your copy. You bought another copy and in turn created a comp that was equivalent to what you had paid previously. I can accept that because that's two separate copies of the card. You're allowed to then bid whatever you want on that card. You can bid triple if you want to. That's your call. But if you are bidding on your own card, if you win the card and pay for it, on paper, it's a legit comp because it was a completed transaction that was paid for. You could say, oh, well, I lost money on the fees and whatever. It's like, yeah, but you artificially propped up the price of the card because it would have sold for less had you not done those protection bids. And if your protection bids result in somebody else winning at your previous price, or dare I say higher than your previous price, You artificially inflated it because had you not been involved, it wouldn't have gone for that price necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a bit of a qualm with that one. Do you get what I'm saying?
That was one when he said it. I was like, man, that should probably be something that isn't said.
I was about to say, like, on the one hand, I kind of give you credit for admitting it, but on the other hand, I was like, should you have?
Yeah,
and this isn't, by the way, this isn't a knock. We begin with the same conversation over and over again. Like, it's like, I like Jeremy, but sometimes there's stuff like that. That's on, again, this is fair game because it's on the show.
Yeah.
He said it on the show.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not making it up. I didn't hear it out of turn and then talking about it. It's like, but on mine, I get to speak in real time about it. And it's like, because when I was listening to it, I was just like, I don't know about that one. You know, Home Improvement? I don't think so, Tim.
Yeah.
I don't think so, Tim. Yeah, meet and greet afterwards. No, sorry, Bobby, I got to. Because it's real. And the thing is, and the reality is that, and we'll get to this one in a second, Brian. It's I think it's a valid question. I'll just do this to pander myself.
Huh.
But the thing is that this is a legitimate debate piece, though, because he's talking about it with the card ladder guys who have a data set.
Mm-hmm.
So when you pull the data set, unless you specifically scrutinize that auction, and again, when it comes to something like PWCC where the bidders thing is hidden, you don't know how it arrived at that price. You just know it did. So because you don't have that piece of information, that's kind of a critical piece of information. Again, he's not the only person to do it. There's no way. It wouldn't be the first time. By the way, he's not the only person to ever do that. So I'm not casting him with like, oh my God, how dare he do such a thing? No, he's not the first person to do that. He's not the last person to do that. No, not at all. Not at all. But it does, then it brings the data into question because you did change something that it had been left alone would not have occurred. If a real auction took place, a legitimate auction where you weren't involved and the price would have been lower had you not been involved, that was the real market price. And you just interfered with it. Mm-hmm. Your reasons are your reasons for reasons. But then I can't treat it as, to me, it's not a legit sale. Again, but how would you know? You wouldn't, right?
Yeah, and again, when you sort of come off, because I think they're talking about the shield bidding before that. And then it was either before or after, because I think it's sort of tied into that, which isn't the same. It's what it is. But yeah, when I heard that, I'm just like, you're coming off, or I want to say they were coming off the shield bidding from the PWCC with the private bidders, and then they went into that. But we'll talk about the bid protection, and then I'm like, ooh, okay, this will be interesting. So when he went through it, I'm like, wow, it's the old dodgeball. That's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see where this goes, or whatever the meme is. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I have to lead with two, like I said, I have to lead with two things. Number one, at the end of the day, I don't care. It doesn't affect a lot of the cards that I'm dealing with. So for me, it doesn't personally impact me.
Yeah.
I do think disclosing was probably a bad move, to be honest. I understand it's like almost in the way of transparency. It was weird. Mm-hmm. But hey, good on you, I suppose. Good on you. But I think from a data perspective, it brings the data set into question.
Yeah.
It just does, because to me, it's not a valid comp at that point. And it's not the same as a reserve bid. That's just kind of the angle I take on it. You can do it. At the end of the day, do it if you want to. But like, I can't stop you. And again, it doesn't affect the cards that I'm buying. So cool. Good on you. But I just don't think it's a legitimate way of, it's not a substitute for a reserve bid. If you really don't want to sell it below a certain amount, put a reserve bid. Exactly. If that's an option. I think use it because to me, that's legitimate. And then the sale never happens and it's not a comp, and no harm, no foul. You get your card back. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of the way I do it. Come on, Bobby. Give me a little bit of credit. I could be incendiary if I want to, but look, the thing is, if somebody disagrees with me, that's fine. I'm just saying why I don't agree with the general premise.
Yeah, it's out there. It's not like it's...
Yeah, again, that one is one where you can go watch the video. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about something that wasn't said. And I'm not interpreting something. It's like, no, that's literally what was said. It's not open to interpretation. It's what literally was said. No, that's fair. That's good as far as that's concerned. I think those are the big takeaways that I got. That was a big one for me. That was a very interesting one that I thought was worth mentioning as well. So what I'll do here is while we're chatting, Dave, I was going to do this earlier, but I wanted us to get a chance to chat through some of these points because I thought there was some interesting stuff. But I'll open it up if anybody wants to come in, and that includes, as I know, Bobby, you don't want to feel like you're getting overexposed on the YouTube, but if you would like to join in, you're more than welcome. And that goes to anybody else. And I mean, no, we're talking very benign, basic hobby topics. Nothing crazy. Don't worry about it. It's all good. But yeah, so if anybody does want to join in, you're more than welcome to. And if I see you down there, I'll pop in if you have a question or want to join the conversation. And maybe you've got something that caught your eye from those things as well, because that was at least a topic of interest from yesterday, because we had the 2 live streams on. I'm just trying to think like anything else coming up. The Skybox thing will be interesting, but I'm going to wait a little while until that comes because it's in April. To me, like it's almost not worth even thinking about until like I want to see what it looks like when the stuff comes in. I want to see the checklist is what I really want to see. That's the thing. But actually, while we're waiting and while we're checking here, Brian said, "What is your hobby story, Dave? Do you want to give a little bit of a Cole's Nose version of some of that?"
You don't want.
I don't know if you've actually done it on your channel. What's that?
You don't want to go 7 hours?
Listen, if your Cole's Nose version takes 7 hours, it's like challenge accepted. I'll go take a nap partway through, but knock yourself out.
Well, started collecting, I think 86.
Okay.
I remember having Topps football packs. I don't remember having the rice because my brother and I we'd get packs at the local Pomida, and we'd write our names on the back because those would be our cards. We're smart. I mean,
of course.
Gradually collect more and more and more as you get older. 91, we moved to Superior, Wisconsin. There's 2 card shops down there. We didn't have those in Ely. We had several little, like the Ben Franklin or the mom and pop shop where you have all kinds of knickknacks and trinkets and whatnot.
Oh, the knickknacks! It's like you're trying to intentionally antagonize Bobby, aren't you? I thought that was Meat's job. By the way, I kind of want to call it benign hobby talk now. I was like, yeah, totally benign.
Yeah, Meat, go back and watch again. 2 times speed.
I would. Like he could get caught up so fast if he did 2 times speed. Let me quickly touch on this one. There's really no surge. Like there were a couple of sales that went up higher than normal. Like there were a couple, but whatever. I thought it was funny. I got a kick out of it, but it's these weird anomalies. I don't know. Like it is what it is. If it was a sustained thing, like honestly, if it's sustained, number one, I'd question it. Like why? Because there's about 1,000 of the OPG Premier Medano rookies out there. I'll be honest with you. If you wanted to see a surge in something, there's like 43. The pop is 43 on the Pro Set. The PSA 10 Pro Set is a pop of 43. That's actually a very tough card because the Pro Sets were like junk coming out of packs.
Yes.
They were garbage. It's not that there aren't like trillions of them out there. There are, but like a PSA 10 is actually hard to get. Most of them came out chipped or miscut or something messed up. So I can't put too much credence in it unless I see a more sustained thing. Right now, it was like a short blip on the radar where it just spiked up, and it was kind of fun for a day. We'll see if there's any holding. So anyway, you were saying in Ely they had a card shop, I think in 91.
Yeah, we moved to Superior, Wisconsin, which is just across the bridge from Duluth, Minnesota. 2 card shops there. There's 1, I think, or 2 in Duluth. So then you had, again, the mom and pop shops, the gas station had cards. Then you had 2 card shops.
I told you the knickknacks would bring him out of the woodwork.
I figured as much.
Bobby, I think there's a reoccurring theme with you. I don't know why on the first try you're a chipmunk every single time. There's something weird about that setting. Give it a go one more time and come back in. It'll probably be the usual procedure. I don't know why every single time. It's so weird.
It's like clockwork.
It's only Bobby though.
I
think everybody else does not have any other one. It's very strange.
So we had those, the 92 Fleer Rookie Sensations, they hit. That was the first time we were around as kids, because I was 12 then. You saw people just busting packs, leaving everything else minus the Rookie Sensations, because those are so white hot. And that was like, take the base or take the regular cards. We don't want those. We just want these. So to be a part of that and be live there, and I was like, okay, that's something interesting. Put that in the back pocket for a while. the insert stuff, I mean, just kept on buying packs. We'd have like a big group of friends. One would collect Elway and Barry Sanders. The other loved the Cowboys. One of my friends loved all the wide receivers, and Jerry Rice was his main guy.
Mhm.
I, of course, collected Favre and Natron Means, of course, two of the best of all time at their positions. But I mean, cards were always there. They're always there. They're always available. Then again, where people took breaks, I really didn't. I mean, I was always buying something somewhere, not to the degree the last few years, but just kept collecting. And then the 90s inserts have always been something that I've collected. I mean, it's never been, I'm not buying any of those.
Not for you, Mike. I just wanted to, Mike was putting in here. He said I have 42 of the 43. Mike, they'll never know. I cornered it years ago. Go ahead.
But the players I collect have been random at best. I mean, Josh McCown, Dennis Northcutt, Kerry Collins.
You? Random?
I know. You're getting some breaking news on the channel.
It really is very hard to believe, Dave. I don't know what it is. We'll touch on this one in a minute. Hockey. I didn't miss it. I definitely caught it. This is about wrestling have any value and entertainment value long term. Actually, let's touch on this one really, really quick here. The thing is, wrestling has been around for a long time. It's not new. So I guess I'm gonna put it this way. If the stories being told are good, then yes, entertainment value long term. If the stories are being told badly, then no. Then it's misery. I think that's what it comes down to. Like, if the story's told well, it's good. If it's not, it's misery.
Mm-hmm. And that's why WWF product right now is being so soured upon.
I won't spend any money on that, man. I can't. It's not a good product. Hey, Bobby.
I still haven't watched DLC, so.
Hey, guys.
There you go. You sound good. How's it going?
I sound good. That's good. I'm back.
Yeah, you're good. No, it seems to be every single time on the first try for some reason, the first one, and then you come back and it's fine.
Yeah, that's unusual. Does anybody else go through that?
Well, Mike was pointing out that he had a little bit of an audio issue when he was on, but for him, it was like an echo. Like, we could hear him, but it was like this weird echo thing. And then I guess he couldn't hear us. Maybe that was the kind of the issue, but he did the same thing. Popped off, came back on. It's fine.
Yeah, interesting. Well, mine is all tied into my webcam. So webcam and microphone. I actually bought a microphone, and I bought the plug is too big and it doesn't fit in the computer. And I went, because I think it's too much of an echo.
Sounds good. So you tell me, Bobby, did we get too controversial or did we stay right on the line?
You pushed the envelope on this one. I was sitting there.
Bobby, I don't shy away. Bobby, you should know by now. I don't shy away.
It wasn't you.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
So it was Dave.
No, not Dave. Not none of you guys. I meant when it was happening in camera. I was sitting there going, okay, all right. I just kind of sat there. Next question, please.
Come on. Give us a little bit of credit. I'm pretty good at navigating this thing. I knew we were gonna chat on that a little bit because I knew, honestly, this is very serious. Dave pinged me with one of the links to one of the videos.
Yep.
And I had a couple of messages on my Instagram within minutes. A couple of people wanted to get my minutes.
Oh wow.
So and I wasn't even aware of it yet.
You have people.
As soon as I get pinged with a couple of folks, I'm like, okay, word gets around fast. So it's like, stuff happens, man. That's why I like the communication medium. Like, it's good because I wouldn't have known. But then I say, okay, let me reserve judgment. Let me watch. And then I did. And some cages were rattled.
Yeah, that happens.
It does. Although, to be fair, I really was shocked it took that long. Because I knew the day would come that something like that would go because it was brewing for a while. It wasn't like a one-time thing that it just showed up out of nowhere.
Well, I think stuff like that does happen on occasion, and I think it happens, and you kind of go back, correct it, or repeat it again. It's up to you. It's free reign out there. Whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do. Like you guys were talking earlier about all the other podcasts and whatever is going on out there, and just the blast that you get from people. I watched a few of them, and it's entertaining. It's actually funny. I think Dave was saying the same thing. It's like, put rant in there, and you're just like, bam, and diss, rant, any of those words, keywords, and you see all of those ones, and those are the ones you kind of avoid.
Exactly. Yep.
So, all right. He's a rocker.
Okay, give me 1 second here.
Name that tune in 3 notes.
I don't know. It's almost sort of like Trapped Headstrong.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out.
But yeah, and you don't want to put those videos up all the time because then people are like, it's the cry wolf thing where it's like, okay, you have one every 6 months, you have one every 18 months when there's a pertinent topic. Okay, maybe we'll listen to you then. But if it's constant rant, why Coke doesn't taste like Pepsi? I'm pissed. It's like, no, nobody cares, dude. That's the reason. You can't have 2 major products being the same thing.
But I think there's a tutorial on YouTube right now that you can just go and they'll teach you how to do all these things. This is how you make yourself big on, YouTube.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, there's certain things that you can do that are going to, there's certain things you can do that will help get more information out there. That's, and it can help you because what it does really is we joke about the algorithm thing, but the algorithm thing's real. Like keywords and certain things. And I said, all it does, literally, if somebody types in like sports cards or baseball cards and all that good stuff, if somebody types it in and you come up in the first couple of links, there's more likely somebody will click on it. That's all it is. It's not that complicated. If somebody clicks on yours first, more people will see it. As more people see it, it keeps you at the top of that list. So then in turn, more people see it and more people click on it and it feeds on itself. And that's kind of how that runs.
Yeah, self-generating. Yep.
So what I got is that call was actually this gentleman who's going to come in and clarify one of the things we were talking about.
Oh.
Hey, Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hi, guys. I just had to come on because I started watching 45 minutes late, so I was watching at 1.5, and then you guys were talking about watching faster, so I sped it up to 1.75, and I'm still like 15 minutes behind. But I got to the point where you guys were talking about
the protection
my protection bid thing, and I need to clarify what I was talking about last time. When I talk about a protection bid, I'm bidding on somebody else's card. I'm not my own. It sounded from what I heard you guys talking about that you both interpreted that as I might consign a card to somebody, and then they're going to list it, and then I'm going to throw a bid at that card being my card. I think that's what you guys thought I said last night.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah. No, that's not what I do. I've never done that. I would never ever do that. So I need to clarify that. What I was saying was, if I own
so the second scenario, I presented the one where you're buying a different card that's the same card as you own, and then bidding on that, because I presented that as a second scenario, and I consider that one to be more legitimate.
That's the only thing I've ever done. I have. No. If I was interpreted last night as saying that I would ever shill a bid on any card that is mine, absolutely not. I've never done that.
The reason it came up is because that's exactly what it sounded like. It wasn't clear. It wasn't clear.
I mean, I got to go back and listen, but that's not at all what
I get what you're saying now.
Said in my mind. I mean, of course I would never do that. That's one of the cardinal sins. So, and if I were ever to do that, there's no way I would say it on.
Well, that's the part. That's the part I was kind of like. First, it sounded like that, and second, I'm like, why would you admit that? It seemed like an odd choice. No. I also don't understand why the protection bid concept even came up. Like I don't
remember. I don't remember. I don't remember why it came up. I'd have to go back and watch. But to me, it's like that's what I have done that before. I'll own a card out of 6 or out of 10, and I see there's another one up. It's like, wait a second, I don't want to see it sell for that low. I'm going to buy it because if it's going to go that low, I'll take another one. You know that
one happens commonly. That one is a very common occurrence because there are folks who have more limited stuff where they would like to sustain the price at a certain level.
Yeah.
So that happens.
Yeah, that's what I meant by protection bid for that. The other, what was the other thing that you just mentioned a few seconds ago? I'm not sure, but if it comes back to me, I'll jump in and mention it. But no, I needed to come on and clear that up because I'm listening. I'm like, whoa, what? No.
Well, the thing is, Jeremy, what I'll tell you is that a couple of the messages are, I wasn't the only person who interpreted it that way.
And I saw Dave say that, I can't believe he said that.
We both listened to the same thing, and we were like, okay.
Heads are all going,
Yeah, it wasn't one or two people. It was like we were listening to it. Like maybe we missed something in there, but like it sounded like it.
Yeah, I got to go back. Not that I'll ever find it among 4 hours of content, but if anyone knows where it is, I'd like to go hear it again, because certainly not what I was talking about.
That's fine.
I'll
But that's
play it
why
right
that's why I
now.
leave it very open ended.
Oh.
It's like if you want to clarify it, it's always that's why it's always been an open forum. It's like,
I want
to say what I hear.
When I heard that said about myself by you two, no doubt I want to clarify that. Oh yes, 100%. I want to clarify that, because I hear two people saying things that aren't true. You know, whether and obviously if I sounded like I said that, absolutely not. No. So
there was a lot of talking going on at that time, and between the two of you, and I think it just got misconstrued, because I know exactly what you're saying, but I didn't understand it at that time. And now I'm really saying, of course, I love buying. I'll get something at a deal. I'll have another one. And you said that too. I'll have another one. I don't mind having two, especially as the other one's at a better deal. Gotcha.
Yeah. That's all I was saying last night. That to me, I mean, the other thing was the comment of I forget the term I used, false reserve, or what was the terminology I used, Carlos?
No, reserve. It's a reserve. It's setting a reserve.
Well, I said it's like something. I said there's something.
Use the comparison. It's like setting a reserve.
Right. So when I was talking about that, I was talking about people shilling their own auctions is like setting a false or a hidden or a secret reserve or something like that. I said that's kind of what they are doing. I said I would never do that, but I will throw a bid on something out there that isn't mine currently that I want to own because I want to protect the bid on that or the value of that. Or it's like, hey, that's just so cheap, I'll buy another one. But that's got to be something really limited. I don't have enough money to do that on a Luka Doncic, which seems to be the card everyone throws out there nowadays. On a Luka,
it's really because it's become the card du jour as a comparison because we know the numbers already. We've almost memorized them.
For whatever reason, any high volume card, that's something that But there was a talk earlier on in the show about, I think you guys were talking about when you were mentioning the Medano, and or even with what's going on with the Tiger Woods card right now. It's possible that there's some sort of fund out there that is saying, hey, take $250,000 and just buy up all the Tigers you can. And as they're churning through those dollars, the prices go up and up, and they keep on buying them, and then they stop. They fill their quota, and then the price comes back down. I think we've seen that in the past in the hobby with certain cards, and I wonder if that's what's going on right now with some specific cards that are being run up.
I will bet almost anything you want that Tiger Woods card will do that. Oh, because there's nothing in it to justify it, and that card was not rare in any capacity. There's nothing.
I have one.
No. Bobby doesn't even like cards necessarily, and he's got one.
I love cards. I love the information behind it. I just don't chase cards as much as other things. So,
but given the few cards you have in your collection relative to other items, the fact you have the Tiger Woods rookie should be indicative that really there's all of them. They're out there. They're out there. They're out there.
I have about 500 or 600 cards.
There you go. But no, that's fair. But no, that's perfectly fine. The clarification is good, but it was just like as we were listening to it, it made sense. As far as the Tiger Woods card, though, it's true. I think it is going to dip down. I think if someone has one, sell it. You can get $1,400 for it. Please go get your $1,400 by all means.
Quick,
take your money. Like the profit's there. I would enjoy it. Why not?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cleared up. Okay, show's over. I'm gonna go.
There you go. Love it.
I can go back to where I had on pause on my phone, come back, watch myself for a bit, and then keep on going.
Yeah,
there you go. Live the dream if you want. Yeah, sounds good.
It's
okay though. Meat interpreted as you said, so you're good to go.
Oh, I'm glad somebody did. Thanks to me, because that caught me from out of left field just now. I'm lying in bed listening to the show. My wife's watching her show on the TV, and I'm like, all of a sudden I jump out. She's like, "What's wrong?" I have to go clear something up. She goes, "What?" I go, "Something was misinterpreted."
I love this.
Yeah.
Oh God,
so good. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just goes without saying that all this stuff happens on the internet and it's misunderstood. And Carlos was talking that first part of your show was all about that, wasn't it, Carlos? Basically.
Yeah. Well, we were talking
misunderstandings.
One of the very first things that came up was the thing with Ziggy, and we had a little bit of breakdown on it. You heard that part already, Jeremy.
I watched from the beginning. I was just behind.
And we try and that was the thing I said with Dave. It's like, no, we're going to keep it to what I've seen. We're going to do what I've personally experienced, and I always think that's the fairest way to do it. We stick to like what I've already been involved with, because everybody else's, that's their business. It's not mine.
Yeah,
I would say that's the fairest way to do it.
Certainly.
Well, if you'll have me, I'll hang out for a bit. If not,
well,
you are more than welcome.
Do you want to vote?
So let me quickly grab this here. Yeah, this is a comment from earlier. It's like, well, the principle, we came to an understanding. The thing is, if there's ever a lack of clarity on something, that's the reason why I put the link up, because I'm like, look, if you don't, I was saying, if somebody doesn't agree or doesn't understand, or there's a clarification to be done, I would like that to happen, because that's better. In this case, you came on, you clarified and explained. I'm good with that, because I said it. That's scenario 2. That scenario is perfectly legitimate because it happens all the time, especially for lower limited cards. And if that's the case, it's your money. If you're good with it, do it by all means. And that to me is a legit comp, because it was a real sale, a real transaction, money changed hands. That's fine.
Yeah, that's right. That's where I kind of ran downstairs. It was right after that, so I didn't hear something else that you had said afterwards. But yeah, to me, I heard you. What I did hear you say was, yeah, that's not a legit comp because you bought your own card.
Yeah, one where somebody is quote unquote protecting their reserve. That one is not a legit comp. The first scenario we're talking about. The second one where you buy a separate card, sure. That's a sale.
But if somebody, I'm going to pay. If I'm going to bid, I'm going to pay.
But what I'm saying is, for those people where you use that example about the pseudo reserve, when somebody does that, to me, that's not a legit comp. It's impossible to detect, but I don't think that's a legit comp.
And that's what I was comparing to being, the false reserve sort of thing. It's like, but it's not. I'm not approving it. It's not ethical. But I believe it happens a lot of, anytime someone shills, and we all know there's tons of that going on, especially on the third-party sellers.
Really?
Okay. Yeah. And that's the thing, though, is that unfortunately that's another complexity that those guys are going to face, because if they want to do their analysis, how can you tell? And now PWCC hides the bidders. So it's virtually impossible. The only way you'll know is if something falls completely out of line. And that's a guess. That's still a guess. It's like somebody really lost it. It's like, okay.
There can be two people going head to head. They both put in what I like to call FU bids, and they're both way over recent comps, and all of a sudden the card sells for 3 times what it should, or 2 times. That can happen. I've seen that happen.
Yeah. I know. Well, PWCC already had some issues prior, and now they put private bidding on. I don't know. They still stay in business pretty well.
Hockey guy. Yeah, I haven't. I'm ashamed to say it's the last day of my holidays. I'm wearing the same shirt I was last night.
What does it say? Buy what?
Your next card on ComC.
Free advertisement on Carlos' show. There, sir.
I know, right? Actually, you know what? It was funny. Okay, so let's actually. I've got something that we can talk about here that I saw actually recently, because, like I said, content is helpful sometimes, because sometimes it'll give you some things that you are catching. And I've been observing this for a while, and Amit can attest. We talked about this before. Our good friends at ComC, since you got the shirt, it's good timing, because I watched a video yesterday that fit into it. And I've said before that when it comes to ComC and their issues, you've had Barry on, and obviously he's talked about the challenges they've had, turning around, getting more people in there, doing all that, which is all true, and I think it's valid. But one of the things I talk about when I have Amit on here, who is a bit of a fan of ComC, we'll say, for the sake of argument, it's become very tricky to the point that Amit one point said is like, well, I can't really defend it. It would be better if it was a better way of if they could find a way. But the challenges are real. But at the same time, it's very difficult to defend the struggles they're having, especially at this stage, this far into it. I don't pay attention to people, and you're familiar with this from the message board world. There are people who will be the first in line to complain about everything. They'll be there on day one. They'll be at the front of the line to do the complaining. They're not the ones I worry about. They're always going to be there. The ones that interest me is the ones that are generally very even keel, or they tend to like let things slide when they start losing it and they start getting angry and they come out with different things. And I've started to see a couple of the folks that fall in that latter category where I started to see that kind of thing. One of them was Nate, who you're familiar with, Dave. He's a big bonds collector. He collects a lot of them. And he had himself an issue with ComC where they had some of their logistical issues, but they had their logistical issues with an eBay sale that took an incredibly long time. It went well past what the normal power seller thing is. And actually, as it turns out, they weren't able to fulfill one of the cards. So they sent 2 out of the 3 cards, missed out on the most valuable of those cards, And it resulted in a big rant about ComC for a guy who was already kind of frustrated with ComC and their turnaround time and delays. The specifics of that specific example don't concern me because everybody's mileage may vary, stuff happens and all that. What I'm seeing though, and I think is interesting, is that it means that now even the folks who tend to be more on the, hey, give them a break, are the ones that are starting to have their issues and are starting to get upset with it. And I don't really see that ComC is going to necessarily be able to fix it right away. It's going to take a couple of months, most likely, if at all. Or maybe the vaccine has to kick in and they're allowed to have a full staff and then suddenly it's fixed. But that means they would have had over a year where they would have those delays when a lot of other businesses have to make those accommodations a little bit quicker.
PSA hasn't.
PSA has it, BGS has it, SGC has it. Everybody that delivers any kind of a service where they have a warehouse or anything, and people have to be in proximity, they all have that same problem. But the other thing as well is that in the time it took them all to do that, ComC has one competitive advantage over a lot of them. I suppose PSA and SGC and BGS have that too. If I was a dealer or something and I was frustrated that I couldn't get my cars, even if I told them to give me everything, it would take them weeks to deliver it. It'd be the same issue even if I wanted to get my cards out. They're almost kind of imprisoned in there, in that system. If I wanted to get them all out at once, it'd be the same kind of problem. Even if I said, like, you know what, forget it, send me back my stuff. They wouldn't be able to deliver on that right away. And it's one of those things where long-term, how much damage does ComC do to themselves? Because there are people that are going to be frustrated to the point that they won't come back on the platform. And they're only using it right now because their stuff is there and they kind of have to until they can get their stuff back, which is going to take a while. So Jeremy, do you want to go first? Do you want to take a stab at that? I know you're glass half full kind of guy, but that struggle.
No, I really don't have anything to say. I mean, the situation is what it is. And, I've preached patience, but I also understand patience has its limits. And there's a point where it's like, you know what, something has to get done. And I don't know what the answer is. And because I don't understand the inside of because I don't understand, sorry, what is this? The Amish Dave and Jeremy, the same channel.
Oh, the same channel.
Right on Super 25. You blame us both. That's you and me, Dave. High five.
Other way. There we go.
Yeah. Carlos, I mean, I understand the gripe. I understand what everyone's frustrations are. And unless I was on the inside, I could maybe give a fair and informed opinion, or my opinion is it's taking too long, but I would like to know more details of what's going on behind closed doors so that I could say, are they doing everything they can to catch up, or are they not doing everything they can to catch up? And because I don't know those details, I can't really comment. I'd love to see them pick it up. And I do feel they have their clients' best intentions in hand, or at least in mind. But that's all I can say. I hope they get it fixed up.
Now the thing is, I guess maybe a different way to put this. Obviously, you had Barry on the show, and Barry's a good guy by all accounts, as I can see. I don't know Barry personally; I haven't met him, but from everything I've seen, everywhere I've seen him around, he seems like a good guy. But I wouldn't put it on Barry to be the representative of everything ComC. He works there, but it's not really his job to speak to that. Is it one of those situations where it's almost like a time where I think is it Tim who's the CEO of ComC? Is it kind of a situation where, like, if it really is, like, you know what, we're stuck? Because even PSA, before the purchase, they were at the point where, as a publicly traded company, they went out of their way to look, we're buying all this warehouse space and this office space. They're basically just showing, like, look, we're doing stuff. Like, I know you're frustrated, but we're actually here. This is a tangible thing. We paid for this building so that we can try to do something about it, make overtures to the people to say, like, look, we are doing stuff. We're not ignoring it. We're doing our best. And here, we'll show you that we're actually doing something. With ComC, it's a little bit more of a closed window because it's like, to your point, we don't know. We know generally, but right now the answer a lot of times that people receive is, well, COVID. It's like, well, yeah, that's been true for a while. It's like, well, that's been true for a while. And it's true for a lot of businesses, and a lot of those businesses have had to adapt and completely change. I can only speak to the retailer that I work for. Their infrastructure for their website and e-retailing and all that was maybe like 10 years out of date. And they had to move like 20 years worth of capacity and things in one fell swoop. They grew an entire generation in a couple of weeks because they said, like, We don't have the luxury of being able to sit back. We can't afford to lose all this business. We have to develop curbside pickup. We have to do all these things. All of these retailers and all these have these challenges. LCBO in Ontario here, it's a government agency, but government agencies are not quick to make moves.
Really?
No, yeah, shockingly. But oddly enough, LCBO somehow, for this one case, was able to go like, okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to get plexiglass between all these things. We're going to do all this. We're going to get all the PPE that everybody needs. And we're going to do, direct pickup so that you can order ahead of time. And we'll put it in a bag for you, show the ID, you get out the door. And they were able to do that within weeks. And this is a government institution who can never do anything.
But it was more of a simple based business,
Sure.
Bottle of booze, not too many sizes, not too many brands.
Yeah.
Much easier than a larger base business.
It can be, but it's their problem mainly is logistics. It's getting the stuff from the warehouse to there. That's where they found a lot of their issues, but they've had to make their adaptations. Now, I'll grab one comment here that I saw. So, okay, guys, just saying, realize that COMC is likely the best platform for what COMC does. For the moment, as an overall, you can say that, but it's like saying eBay is the best for what it does. It is, but a lot of us don't like it. It's one of those things where if you gave us an alternative, we'd take it. And that's not a good place to be. eBay's secure in the sense that right now nobody's been able to come up with a better version of eBay. But if somebody did, they could steal some market share very quickly. It's the same as the grading companies. It's like, well, PSA is the best at what it does. Does that mean you should rest on your laurels and never try to improve? Because if that's the case, well, Nat Turner can buy it. All right, keep running as it is. He could technically do that. It's not like PSA is not profitable. Or you could try to improve it. And you're already the market leader. So it's like he's in a good position where they could keep the status quo if they wanted to. I don't think that's what he's going to do. So then why change it if you're already the market leader and you already have a stranglehold on that market? SGC shot itself in the foot and BGS has had its issues. Why do anything then?
The Leafs have been doing it for 20 years.
20?
At least. Well, since 1949, they've been selling out the gardens.
Well,
why spend the money if you don't have to? If you're selling out, why would you want to spend more money on players? And we suffered with that a long time. This is why I'm wearing this hat, guys. Anyways, I'm not kidding you.
It's like, that the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I heard a great retort to that many, many years ago. Instead of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, make it better. And Carlos kind of posed the question, I think sort of jokingly is like, if it ain't, they're already the market leader. Why make it better? And, I would think right now there's been so many disruptors to so many industries. I think eBay needs to consider it. I think PSA needs to consider it. PSA has a potential disruptor on the horizon with CSG right now. I don't know that eBay does, but PSA potentially does. So there's some motivation to always strive for improvement. And had the transaction with the Nat Turner transaction not happened, I would be hesitant to give PSA credit for doing that, for trying to improve. But with him coming in, I think that he's of that mindset where, he's just so young. He's 34 years old or something. So he's got so many years that he can really leave his stamp on that company and the hobby. I think like Carlos said, you don't think he'll take the complacent approach. I don't either.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing, is that there is a potential to go even more in. Basically, you could enhance your market advantage because, okay, so say the new player comes in, let them steal some market share from SGC, let them steal some market share from Beckett, but then you can take some too and make it almost a two-player game, but at the same time enhancing your own market lead. So that's an opportunity that's there. And if you really want, you can try crushing them. But it's one of the, because they're new. The good news is they don't have baggage. The bad news is they also don't have a track record. So the first cards that come up that have legitimate cards, they go into Ken Golden auctions. If they don't set record prices for a 10 of the new thing, then maybe they'll get some people that like them. Maybe some people like the holders, but they may not get, they're going to need to have those big sales to kind of set them off in the direction of making them viable. It's the same as the MNT thing. Some folks like on your show last night, they talked about MNT. It's like, well, that's great and all, but if an MNT 10 is worth like $5 more than the raw card, why bother? It's not even worth the cost of grading. We can go get a KSA 10 then if you want. At least it's in a holder, but that's about it.
Do you know how busy those guys are at the show though?
Totally.
Like amazing. Like they do better than even the sausage guy at the expo, and that's saying something.
But part of it is because part of it is they'll encapsulate it on site. If PSA or one of those other ones came and encapsulated on site, it'd be like,
Yeah,
who's KSA?
exactly.
National, the PSA encapsulation thing has a line.
Oh, I heard it's a big line.
Yeah.
Line, yeah.
Hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, but the reason is because it's there. People are like, well, I've got this valuable card. I don't even want to ship it out. Even with insurance, even with courier or whatever, let me get in this ridiculous line. But at least I get to the other side and someone will take it directly from me, grade it, and I can get it back in the same show. So they'll pay the premium for that. But that tells you what it is.
I think I would have thought that there would have been some contingency plans for, ComC or any of these other PSAs to, Paul C said it, it is a logistic nightmare. And as you grow, it just gets crazier and crazier. I also see that with Card Ladder, the amount of man hours and time, it's unbelievable. It's so hard to sustain at a certain point. He hasn't even added enough hockey or other sports or non-sports. What happens at that point? How many people do you have working there? And do you charge $50 a month? Who's $50 a month, Carlos?
Oh, that's Market Movers.
That's a lot of money. That's US, isn't it?
Yep.
Good luck. Wow, it's a lot of money.
Now, I will say, since you bring up the logistics thing, I think it's a good point. So here'd be my thing. Obviously, right now, it'd be very difficult to pull it off. So I totally get it. But you have to look. Maybe what you need to do in a certain way is you kind of have to look towards people in your space that are dealing with the same kind of challenges, but have found a way to make it work. Because one of the, I want to say Stacking Slabs, the podcast, he had on the gentleman who owns Burbank Sports Cards out in California.
I saw that video.
Yeah, and they've got a warehouse as well. And they tout that they have 43 million cards. So when you order from their eBay store, so what they did, and actually I like the specific episode because he didn't talk about all the specifics, but he basically said, we came up with a system that I think he described as a Dewey Decimal System on steroids. The idea being that he could quickly train somebody to find any card from any set on the spot quickly. So they developed the system so they could train quickly to be able to get somebody in there in a couple hours training. All right, you can find whatever card you want now. So when the orders come in, they can say, here you go find these. And then they can turn it around. If you have an inventory of 43 million cards, and you can do that. Now, mind you, ComC's already been around for a while. It'd be difficult to redo something in a whole system. So it's right now you wouldn't be able to do it. But this is something you could have been thinking about ahead of time. And also at the same time, sports cards were already starting to trend upward before COVID. Mm-hmm. So when you say you're doing hiring now, it's like, that's cool, but you wanted to have a little capacity going in because the market was already trending upward. So for some folks forget that it was already starting to go up at the end of 2019.
Marginally though.
Not that marginally. Now it exploded more later. We're talking about exponential versus
comparatively speaking.
Exponential.
You didn't know where it was going though too, right?
Nobody did know.
Yeah.
No.
And hindsight makes it much clearer. I like the Meats comment. If Bezos got into the auction game, that would be interesting. Yeah, it would. There's something I'd like to see.
Well, speaking of somebody who has the infrastructure to be able to control a warehouse, with the amount of items they have, they can get the stuff out to you at Prime pretty quickly. And that's with a lot of variety of items.
Only what they have in stock. What they don't have in stock and shipped by somebody else. Even the Prime doesn't cover the shipping, and you're waiting weeks.
No, that's right. But that's where if you were going to say Amazon and you wanted to do the guarantee, you would do it by fulfillment. Because it's the same way, you could be a store and send it to Amazon's warehouse, and then a lot of the controls are in place because it's in their warehouse and not you mailing it out.
Yeah.
That's the way that works, is that we'll see. So yeah, item number, regardless of what it is. Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right, hockey guy. But the thing is, they sell, in terms of volume, they sell a lot more. And part of the fun that wasn't in that rant video is that ComC lost the guy's card. It was a 3-card order, and they lost one of the 3 cards. And then didn't tell him that they had lost one of the 3 cards and sent him a letter saying that we couldn't find this. We'll send you a refund. And then he has to go looking now because he hasn't seen the refund yet. So now he has to go yell at them about the refund. And this is through eBay, so he could get the refund through eBay. So that's probably what he's going to have to do. But it's a partial refund because they sent 2 out of the 3 cards. And the tracking shows the full package came in. So that's I think what set him off, is that it showed as all 3 arriving. They used the tracking number, but then inside the envelope, it goes, oh, by the way, we couldn't fulfill this one. So you're not getting that.
You see them in the warehouse. Where's that one card? We got to find that one card.
Exactly.
Billions of cards that they have. How many cards do they tote that they have?
They've got millions. ComC has, I think, like 6 million, something like that.
And Burbank Sports has 43.
It's out. They say 43. It is a lot, to be honest. I can say they have a variety of different things. It's surprising how much stuff they've actually got. And I've ordered from them enough times to know that, generally speaking, they can get stuff out to you pretty well. So 5,017,000 right now in ComC.
23.5, right? Is that what you said?
For what, ComC or Burbank?
ComC.
ComC 5,078,818.
I'm on their front page. It says 23,500,000 total items, 77.4 million unique.
So everyone's using that 23 million. Oh, just throwing that number around.
That's not coming up in their search. I literally just typed in their search and hit go without punching in anything, and only 5 million items came up. So I don't know.
Yeah, if you go to their main, I see. I see
saw the line, but I'm saying that then all 23 million are not searchable.
Yeah, that might be the case.
Yeah, so which is fine. That's okay.
But they're not. It's like that float example I used.
Exactly. It's like I'm not going to count the 23 million if I can't purchase from 23 million items.
Exactly.
So that's fair. That's fine. But obviously still a fairly large inventory. No matter how you want to slice it, it is a fairly large inventory.
No doubt. Wow.
Yeah. It could be. The thing is, for some of the cards, there are definitely multiples. So it's how many unique listings there are.
A lot.
Yeah. So that could be true. You could have multiple. So you could have 23 million if you count the multiples. That could be a thing.
10 million pro set.
Ooh, there we live the dream. Only 10 million, Bobby. Only 10 million.
You had to leave some room for score.
So you're saying only 1990, 91. They didn't have it in 91, 92.
Yeah, maybe a bit.
There you go. I'm just taking a look here.
See, Jeremy, it's good you came on and came to straighten that out, because I guess rather than leaving it out there, and people assuming different things, it's better that it was brought up. So much better.
I'm just glad I was watching Carlos's channel tonight.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Otherwise, if I would have seen this tomorrow, I would have been, why wasn't I watching? I could have gone on and cleared it up.
And then it's out there in the ether, and you're sitting there going, I can't do anything. So now you've done something. That's great. And it's rectified, and it's great. And I understand it 100%.
I would kind of hope that some people would just give me that credit anyway for that I wouldn't do that. But I guess despite that, if that's what it sounded like, that's what it sounded like.
Well, there's a lot talked about between you two, and it was just back and forth, and I think that it just got misconstrued. That's all. Misconstrued. Yeah. Anyways.
It's all good.
It's a good thing, actually. It's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. So as far as that's concerned, I think that covers a big chunk of it. And the ComC thing is one that I'll kind of be observing. Again, I'm kind of in the same boat where I mentioned before, I'd like ComC to succeed, but as it is currently, and I can say from my current experience with them, I was very happy to get out a big chunk of the cards that I had in there, but am I going to be thrilled paying $230 to ship 350 cards? Not so much. And then wait 3 weeks for that at minimum? Not so much. But it is what it is. That's the super expedited version, which will only take 3 weeks, supposedly. I'll report back my findings. We'll see. That's they say they'll ship it out by the 11th, and it should be to me by the 20th, and we'll see how closely they can hit that. I'm not if it goes on the 21st, I'm not going to do a rant video, but we'll see how much more or less that one goes. But it's not cheap on a per card basis. It's not bad, but I don't know if after a certain amount of cards, I don't know if it makes sense to do a per card basis. The handling fee makes sense, but if you're shipping it all out in one box, it doesn't cost that much to ship. The handling fee can only be so much too. So I don't know about that structure, but it is what it is. At least hopefully I can get my stuff, so that'll be good. Okay.
I have a small little issue. My friend joined up for the Canadian side of. I know in the States they have when you pay, it goes right through your bank account. Well, in Canada that's coming. You can't have a U.S. based bank account. So what they're going to do is they're going to take your money and deposit it. And if you sell an American, they'll exchange it. But then if you buy something, they'll exchange it back. So you're going to hit twice as hard. by getting your money in and money out, money in and money out. And that's coming very soon. I think that already happens. Is that right, Dave? You're in the US, right? Yeah. So if you do 500 transactions, your bill, your bank report is just a mile long. It's crazy. But my understanding now is my friend opted into it early. So now he's waiting. I think he's 3 or 4 days to get his money. So it's in limbo at this point. Well, they transfer to your bank. Like PayPal used to be like that. It was 3 to 5 days. They used to say. You used to get it in 2 to 3, and actually, it's down to 1 day or even less than that. But now with eBay, they're going to be the 3 to 4 days. So you want to buy something, you can't use that money to buy something else. You got to wait till it comes to your bank account and then throw it back out there. So every time you want to buy an American, you're going to have to exchange your Canadian again because there's no holding like PayPal. So that's going to turn me off a lot.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think they haven't really forced it on us yet on this end because this past weekend I got to sell a couple of cards because I had a couple that moved a little bit. So I haven't sold any in a while because I didn't want to deal with a lot of the eBay stuff. But at least if it's graded cards and I track it, at least I've got something. We'll see. Obviously, it could still cause issues anyway. But I still get my payment through PayPal, so that's still good because it goes directly to the account. So for now, that's okay. Well, they kept emailing everybody and saying, "Well, if you want to opt in now." So, and my friend did. He says, "Well, it's going to happen anyways," and he did it. Now he's sitting there going, "It's been 3 days. I don't even know where my money is." They don't even know where it is. So, anyways, problems to come. Yeah, we'll see. But that kind of goes back to what I said earlier about we've got these platforms that have a stranglehold in certain areas of the market. ComC has that low card price category well stocked because they have a lot of inventory. There's a lot of stuff on there. And we'll see, like, there is opinions like this. And then obviously there was the opinion above that, oh, well, they'll all come back. I said, well, some will. But it becomes like, can I deal with the amount of irritation that I experience with it? I understood what I was getting into when I made a lot of the purchases on there because some of that stuff was available there that wasn't available in another format. But some of that stuff, if it was available in a different format, I wouldn't even bother using ComC because I'd like to get some of my stuff in a reasonable period of time or not have to pay through the nose in order to get it in a reasonable period of time. So that gets problematic. And that always used to be the advantage of ComC is you could stack the stuff, send it all in one shipment, and it would be cheaper. And it sort of isn't. And we'll see here because eBay has obviously made a lot of promises about different things they're going to do to try to be a little bit more buyer friendly, but it's shifting themselves back because they became a publicly traded company. Yeah, it became really, really, really buyer friendly to the point it was almost a detriment to be a seller. Yes. Well, you need inventory. So if you make it so that, oh, I'm a buyer, it's like, oh, my case is scratched. It's like, you bought this 60 days ago. Why are you returning it now? Well, the market price went down. I mean, it's scratched. Yeah. What did I say? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you can take it right up to the the 90-day point, isn't it? It was something like that. It became really long. Market goes down, you lose your money, and you got to have that money. Say it was a $15,000 card. Yeah. Now imagine a 90-day hold on it, because effectively you can't necessarily reallocate those funds because if oh, here you go. It might even be worse. Was it 90 days or 180 days, Jeremy? It was very long. It came during COVID. They extended it. They made it really long.
I remember hearing 180. I remember hearing 180, but I don't do a lot of selling, so I don't keep that much that close track of it.
Yeah, but could you imagine?
So is PayPal okay? And IRC.
Yeah, they extended it. The idea was to try to protect buyers because of shipping delays and stuff. But it's like, let's even if you take 90 days, like 3 months is enough time for something to arrive. If the issue is I don't think I got my stuff, it's like, okay, 3 months is enough. After like a month and change, should be mind. It's just open for changing their mind because they usually get it in a week or two. So eBay might be 90 only. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's 90. I'm pretty sure of that. But you left the room open for buyer's remorse, and that was an issue. And eBay, the point that was made earlier about ComC, eBay can almost make that same argument like we talked about earlier. It's like, well, you guys really aren't going to leave because we've got the stuff you want. It's like they're almost mocking you with it. It's like, well, if you want to buy these things, they may not be on Instagram, they may not be on Facebook, they may not be in these other avenues, but it's on eBay.
Can I share a card that just sold on eBay about 5 seconds ago, and I want to share the card and how much it sold for because I was excited.
Oh, you should have gave us the countdown. I love those.
I didn't. I just got the end. It ended notification, and you were outbid. And I'll let you know my high bid on here was $200. But I bid a few days ago. Anyway. This card here.
Okay, so that's a Gretzky. I think that's the second year jersey.
Second year of the jerseys. First year Gretzky's in the set.
That's right.
1997, just the regular Series 1 game jersey card. It is a 3-color, a little bit of gray up there.
Yep.
And it is graded, which maybe helps the grade. It's super rare, but this card just sold for that much money.
Oh my gosh. The heck? $3,350, 77 cents.
Just got a bid on that one, Dave?
Are you kidding?
Just narrowly a bid on that one?
Right?
I was the second bidder.
My max bid was your max bid 200. When I thought it might be a $400 card. Oh boy, I was wrong.
Jeremy, I thought we talked earlier about setting new records, Jeremy. You should have put $50,000 in there and you would have won.
That's not a card I'm prepared to set a record on. Not like, trust me, a record was set and it's way higher than I would have set.
That seems aggressive. That seems aggressive for that card. I like the card, but it seems aggressive. That seems a little aggressive.
I think it's cool to see because that's kind of what's happening in basketball with the basketball goat MJ.
I think that's too high, too fast.
You don't see them though. You just don't see that card. That's the first one I've seen on eBay, and since I've had that saved search on my eBay, which has been a while.
Was that US dollars?
Yep, 33.50, 42.70 Canadian.
$4,200. Wow.
I was blown away. I'm doing the set. It's the last card I need.
I get it.
So I'm not doing the set anymore.
No, at that point. Well, this is what I mean. It eliminates people right out of the bidding process.
Yeah, I'm okay never having. I'm okay with the incomplete set now.
No, you're not.
Well, I'm not, but I'll have to be.
See, now you're forced to be. And that's when prices go crazy and people dump. They say, well, I can't get that set. There's no way. I can't spend $4,000 a year and $8,000 a year, $5,000 there. I don't know where people are getting the money. Is COVID money better over in your part of the province?
Oh man, it sure adds up fast when you're spending thousands here, thousands there. How can you keep up, right?
Yeah.
Then the question becomes so if you've abandoned the set, then I mean the rest of the set becomes available now. It's like, all right, if you guys are going to pay that much, because I think Waz in that set, isn't he? And
so here's the thing though, Carlos, I don't have that particular card, but there is also a parallel of that card numbered to 99 and autographed, which I do have a copy of. So I just don't have the unautographed version. So I kind of do have the final card, even in a better version. But it's not in my personal. It's actually in my inventory kind of box. But maybe I'll have to keep it now since it's worth less than what this card is worth, more than what I thought mine was worth. It has the autograph, so
So maybe a good thing.
Probably a good thing for my autograph card.
Oh, for sure.
Well, that's the thing though that becomes the decision-making process is that a lot of people have to decide at what point they want to hold some of their stuff. It becomes what. Well,
I think someone said, was it on your show, Jeremy? You just have to. Oh, it was the overtime. He said sometimes you just have to settle for less a card. You can't. If you can't afford it, you have to settle for a lesser card, and you keep lowering your expectations. I'll be at PSA 2 soon, and it's a silly thing to say, to be honest. I don't care. I don't know who that guy is, but he owns the card ladder or whatever. And I just said that was stupid. Well, you just have to juggle, and I'm okay, whatever.
But it's kind of all you can do, when it's unfortunate, but sometimes it's all you can. I always like to say there's always other cards, just because I'm not going to, if I don't buy this particular jersey card for my set, and I now say I decide to sell the other cards from the set, that's fine. I'll take that money and I'll put them into different cards and I'll hopefully be just as happy, but that's not what'll happen. I'll just keep those anyway. They're still cool cards. I mean,
what was the analogy? Mona Lisa and
Picasso was brought up, I believe.
maybe, yeah, a couple of those. Well,
People have
I appreciate the concept, but like for goodness sake, sports cars are not Picasso's and Mona Lisas. They're not.
You know, I want to point one thing out, and you'll understand it probably the most, Carlos, is that it's when you're live, especially from my seat, because I'm juggling the chat, the guests, my notes, you know, the ticker, the banners, all that stuff. Like sometimes you say things and then you're like, you know, like that's not really what I want to say. And sometimes you it's hard on the spot to come up with a good analogy or a good example. And I'm just being in that, having that experience now of doing live broadcasting. When you know, Bobby, you make the comment about like, that wasn't the best analogy. No, it wasn't. But sometimes you got to cut the person some slack because they are coming up with it right off the top of their head. And sometimes it's hard to.
I respect that 100%.
I know.
And, you know, but then he says, then you have to settle for a lesser degree, and you'll have to, you know, soften your.
But you know what? And I get it, Bob, but if you were on the show with him and you could have then responded, then he could have responded, and you would have gotten more clarity from him and probably refined the idea and have time to really work it. So sometimes, I'm just saying, sometimes what we're saying is a little bit, anybody who's on, it might be a preliminary thought that upon in a different environment could have been better refined, presented, expressed to really nail down what someone's thinking. And I just think there is that little bit of cushion I'd offer.
I give that slack to everybody. I understand that perfectly. The end result of the answer is still the answer, whichever way you put it, and you can't get away from that. And I don't need even to mention what it is, but we all know what it is.
I'll just add, if I can answer Chris's question, if I'm also doing the 0405 tribute set. No, I'm not. I'm not doing that, Chris, but I have started looking at them a little bit. So right now I'm not.
A couple of those actually went for a little more than I would have thought. The tributes are okay. They don't quite look as nice as the originals, but I can appreciate the attempt.
Thank you, Canadian Cards, for the advice. Yeah, I should do that. The guy's got the Gretzky now. Maybe he wants all the rest of them.
Well, but that's what we're saying. Like, I'd be curious. Like, if the Gretzky is going to go for that much, it's basically what happened with Angel with his Mirror Gold set. Like, if the one card's going absolute bananas, some of those other pieces might be worthwhile. Yeah. You know, dare he break up the set, but it's not too bad, right?
I saw his post somewhere asking, "Hey, should I break this up now?" It's probably a good time.
It wouldn't be the worst idea, though. It wouldn't be the worst idea, at least because I know Steve really liked building that set. He took a long time on it, but at the same time, I guess maybe the question that I would have had, I haven't had the chance to talk to him about it, but I guess the question would be like, so now that you finished the set, do you even look at it?
Yeah.
Or did it just sit on the shelf? Is it in the binder? Like, is it just there? Because if it's just there, then why bother?
Thanks, Hockey. Thanks for the comment, Hockey. Yeah. Jeremy, do you have the Waugh out of 33? I do not, Chris. I think that's in the Patrick Waugh autograph. I don't. I have the regular unautographed Waugh that would have been like the Gretzky I just showed, but I don't have the autographed Patrick Waugh.
I'll be curious to see, and it kind of plays off that, though, as some of these prices do keep inflating. You already mentioned, and you already mentioned on your previous streams and things, that you're more inclined to hold on to a lot of the cards. That's your inclination. But I think there's going to be a lot of other folks that are going to be like, I'm inclined to take the money. Now, the good news is that'll create some inventory, which is good. Yeah, there you go, Dave. But yeah, some of them will be inclined to take the money. Now, the good news is that may create some more inventory, which may control it. It's that balance of supply and demand again. If the prices go up enough, it encourages some people to put the stuff out there. And if it puts enough stuff out there, well, then you get a little bit of cover. Because if even some rare cards come up in multiples, that's going to keep the price a little bit more under control for some of the subsequent copies. So that's what ends up happening with a lot of these. You know that set pretty well, Dave. You want to throw anything on there, that one? The precious metals?
I love them.
I'm getting a case too.
I think 3 of the 4 guys I collect, the only one I'm missing is Forsberg, and I still haven't seen one pop up. I think they're undervalued even at the prices they've been. And again, I haven't looked recently, probably about the last month at stuff, but usually that's a search every week that I check, because there's some, even on the football side. I know he's specifically talking about the hockey, but I mean, even the hockey, I think, I want to say Samsonov's in there, and he went cheap. And again, that's not just a scrubby player that's getting thrown in. At the time, he was a big prospect / rookie, and his stuff, it's still manageable. I mean, for a card that isn't the mirror gold, the platinum mirror gold, a rubies, something like a PMG, those were the cards back then, and people have completely, it seems, forgotten about them over the years. I mean, the guys that collected, or the gals that collected in that era, they remember them because they were insane cards to try to find on the secondary market. So I'm happy to have gotten 3 of the 4 of my guys paying strong, I think, on the WA, because I saw, I think a couple of weeks after I bought my WA, one went for just under 200, and then about a month later it was at about the same price. But I'm happy I got mine, because again, it's not an every month card that pops up. If you see one of your player, or you just see one in general, and it's a decent price point, I'd say snag it, because again, they don't come around that often.
So now you know Dave's pumping up the precious metals. So that's basically what just happened here. I just want you to all realize that. The irony is tremendous. I enjoy it in many levels. So
I'm
have a good
buying
night.
5 cases.
Go ahead.
I'm buying 5 cases.
Yeah, as you should, Bobby, as you should. Based on that recommendation, why not?
That's
But,
what I
See, you get led down this garden path, right?
Yes, absolutely. When I look for hashtag invest, I ask Dave what he thinks. That's usually where I go first. Yeah, but
and Jeremy too.
Oh, without question. But so here's the thing, and this is more of a philosophy question. I'll keep this one. This one's kind of fun and it's open because it plays into kind of what Dave was talking about indirectly. Because we've got all these inserts now, and we've got all the other sports have seen this thing, and I've always found this to be an interesting phrase. I understand the concept of it, but we can expand upon it for a moment. It's one of my favorite phrases. Because I hear it a lot on social media, especially. It's like, oh, this blank, insert blank here, is finally getting the respect it deserves. And I'm like, that's not possible. I'll say why. Is it getting more demand now? Yes. Are more people maybe keyed into it now because they're looking at other avenues? Because for me, it's as these prices go up, because this happens with all these other sports. Why did the Tiger Woods thing become? It's like it's not like Tiger Woods got better in the last couple of months than he was. He already has the majority. His Hall of Fame career is already established. He's one of those guys, and he's a golfer because that means he's also probably not going to retire in the next year or two unless his back acts up again, and then he has to retire. Does he have a shot at passing Jack Nicklaus? It's still a long shot, but he's at least got a shot. But he's not going to be a consistent winner of the PGA Tour. In 2000, Tiger could do no wrong. He was winning everything. That was like his peak period. The reason 2001 Upper Deck Golf existed was because of Tiger's dominance in the early 2000s. He basically created the need for that brand because otherwise, like, who needed golf carts? You had that big gap between like Pro Set, and then all of a sudden you had some random sets here and there, and then the Tiger Rookie became the 2001 Upper Deck, even though it was a 97 Masters card and a bunch of other stuff, a Sports Illustrated for Kids card and a bunch of other things. But when you say that it's like, oh, getting the respect it deserves, it's like, well, if it deserved that respect, it would have already had it. Now, new people had it, give it attention, because now it's, well, I need to find something else that isn't already here price-wise, so I'll pay attention to this.
The thing, Carlos, is that everything, everything has gone up in value.
Correct.
So the comment, the Mario Lemieux rookie is finally getting the respect it deserves. And I've probably been guilty of saying this before on some cards, but really it's still compared to the Gretzky rookie, it's still at that same rate, that same ratio is pretty much going to still be there. That's the ratio compared to MJ is still there if you're even crossing sports. So I hear what you're saying. It really doesn't make sense to say.
It's an odd turn of phrase, but my philosophy, I go back to the economics thing. Like, if you guys wanted it so badly, you could have had it before, and the ratios were in place, and all that was there, and the Lemieux was appropriately priced according to where the Gretzky was at that time.
What about if people want it more now than they wanted it before? So, and if you look at one of those single people, it's like, hey, you're finally wanting it as much as you should, or you're finally giving it the respect that it should get. Like, I wonder how much of that might be true, or as more people, in the hobby are, you come in and you're only buying whatever product, and then you mature in the hobby a little bit, you get to a little bit more refined with your taste, or you start to understand what it is an important card versus a less important card, and like, oh, I should probably buy a Mario Lemieux rookie card. And a bunch of people go through that same sort of metamorphosis at the same time, and next thing you know, that card is getting the respect it deserves because people are realizing it.
That last part of your sentence a second ago is the key part. It's not that that is 100% possible. 100% possible. Happening all at the same time is the part that I question. People coming to this realization nearly simultaneously.
Yeah,
that's the part that's like, if this had happened gradually over years, sure.
But we have just gone through a very unique time in the history of the hobby where things are happening that are sort of a little bit weird, if you will. And, there's so many new people coming in. So we're told that it seems like maybe some of these people coming in are paying attention to some of the correct cards, Sorry to keep on doing these air quotes, but just a thought experiment more than anything. When I'm taking part in this discussion, I'm just kind of having fun with it and trying to think about it because it is an interesting concept, and I like the question that you pose.
Yeah, weird stuff happens.
This one has to be a thought experiment. Go ahead, Bobby.
No, weird stuff happens. I always talk about the 33 O-Pee-Chee and all the other cards that came out in 1933. 6 different issues in 1933. They all just came up with this one idea. Everyone thinks that, oh, we'll do gum cards. Well, yeah, like 6 companies at once in 1 year.
Yeah.
So did everybody even think that there could be a salesman out there who runs a print shop and he's going around saying, hey, you could, that seems a little bit more common sense to me anyways. And I think it's very much the same as you were saying, Dave. Undervalued is another one of those words, undervalued. Well, okay.
Market is what the market is, right?
It is. A dope MC is a dope MC.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm quoting beyond my years here.
Yeah. It's like Canadian Cards comment there, that exactly is very succinct, right? The Gretzky pushes the Lemieux, which pushes the Waugh, which pushes the Messier, and so on and so on. So it's like maybe the Gretzky card got the respect it deserves relative to other all-time GOATs, and then it's brought up everything else with it that that is kind of next in line in terms of importance. But that still begs the comment, or still doesn't validate the comment that that these other cards are finally getting the respect they deserve.
Then when you do that, and I like the comment. If that's true, though, you're basically saying, though, we didn't respect the Lemieux until the Gretzky went up.
Yeah,
we didn't respect the Waugh until the Lemieux went up, and so on and so forth.
Right, but that's exactly the case. That's the story of the last year. That's the story of the whole last year.
Yeah, which then leads that it's not the player. It just so happens that he was next in the pecking order.
It's the hobby.
The market.
It's the market. It's the market. Exactly.
Not the hobby.
Yeah. And it's
the hobby's always been there.
It's the market in the hobby.
It's in the hobby. That's right. Fair enough.
It's the same
hobby's market.
Yeah, it's the same sequencing that happens with the grade levels. Because as the 10 goes out of price range, people look at the 9, then they look at the 8, then they look at the 7. You start sequencing it down to try to find a price point that you can.
They start looking at those to buy, and then they start thinking, well, if a 9 now sells for this, what should an 8 or a 7 sell for? And then things just fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but a lot of things set precedents now. Well, that one sold for this, so this has to sell for this. And I think that mindset is transferred to everybody out there. They're just kind of running around going, oh, well, here's the record. Here's the record. The card ladder, it was perfect. They break it all down for everybody.
Well, and that's exactly what's happened, because you've heard a lot of people on social media say, hey, if you look at what this is selling for in this sport, well, this other stuff must be undervalued, or it is undervalued. So people start now, they hear that message from an influencer, and they go and they start buying that product or that card, and it brings it up. So yeah,
a lot of influencers out there.
It's funny that the conversation is so interesting, but how Carlos introduced it almost really has, it's almost, you didn't need that to start the discussion. The discussion stands on its own 2 feet without the whole, finally getting the respect it deserves. But hey, we needed to wait.
But the thing is, there's a lot. It's the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, or the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You can get there a lot of different ways, and you'll end up at that spot.
Yeah.
Because once you unravel it a little bit, you will find it.
I think in this world we're at 3 degrees.
Yeah, but that's what's going to happen. I've seen this conversation initiated in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't matter. You're going to end up in the same spot. You just will, because that it still comes back to that same question that you're asking. But the whole thing with I'm okay with it because one of the things that I repeatedly say is that it's like, at the end of the day, I don't care. If everything quintuples in price, great. If everything drops to zero, I'm good with that too. Makes no difference to me. Anywhere in between is fine. But I always ask the question, why? I like to see kind of the why behind it, because when we're looking at it, is that, okay, to your point, the influencers do have an influence. But if these people suddenly get this idea spontaneously because an influencer told them to, that means they weren't spontaneously thinking about it on their own. They said they needed to be influenced, which is okay. But then it's not organic. And we've got these forces that are inorganic playing with a market that may or may not be organic. And that even goes back to the question that was presented on your show yesterday, Jeremy, where it's like, well, how many people are out there? It's like, well, Ken Golden can tell us has a big mailing list. And it's like, that could very well be true.
The biggest.
The data point though is, okay, you have a mailing list of 12 billion people. How many people are actually bidding? These are two numbers, right? It's like the float versus population question.
And he doesn't have every collector in the hobby on his mailing list anyway. Correct. So it's I think we kind of concluded that it's impossible to answer, and we're not even willing to make a guess because we have no clue.
Exactly. But that's always what happens, is that we run into these problems. Unfortunately, we can't answer it, but it is pertinent because that market is the answer to a lot of the other questions. If we actually did know, then that would tell you, okay, so how much is organic and how much isn't? Just quickly grab here. Here you go.
Karvin has the answer.
It's 50 million. I knew it.
This is absolutely key. So you're saying Luka Doncic at 50K. And then we'll get it down to 45K when it gets to 20,000 pop. Seems legit.
Yeah, that's undervalued.
See, if Bobby's saying it's undervalued, now we know.
Yeah.
I didn't miss this one, but I didn't have a good time to throw it in there. See, it's not true. It's never true. Ever. Especially at this point. Not true. Never true. Yep. Japan, China, Hong Kong. Yeah, that's fair.
Was I want to know, Karvin, were you serious? Was 50 million a serious guess? Like, I'm just not sure if he was throwing out a number or if he actually thinks that that's a fair estimate.
I don't know if that's the answer to that, but I like that he made a follow-up.
He didn't answer yesterday, or the other day. So
yeah.
It's too. Who knows? And
no,
even if you gave a number,
it's also a nebulous thing, because I'll say, in all seriousness, let's say we were able to come up with a reasonable estimate. Let's say we were able to come up with a reasonable estimate. Okay, how long does that stay? Because it's fluid, right? How many collectors there are out there? Okay, what is a collector? Is it somebody who buys the odd pack here and there? Is it someone who buys some singles here and there? Is it someone who buys a card once a year? Does that count? Is that enough? Or is it somebody who consistently participates in the hobby at some level, any level, throughout the year, and it's not like a seasonal thing? Depending on your answer, that can change the number too. Because you can have these folks that maybe crack a pack here or there, but are they really collectors? Maybe folks who put stuff in a binder. I don't know.
Yeah.
There you go.
Everybody's at different degrees in the hobby. It's too hard to.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a fluid number that would literally change daily. You could sit there and try to figure it out.
This comment that Hockey has up, I was curious about the 35. So I'm in my my analytics on my YouTube channel to see the age distribution of my the people that have watched, and 52% fall in the 35 to 44 age range. 52%. 25 to 34 was 16.7%. So the lower one, and then the high 45 to 55 or 45 to 54 years old is 24.5%. So it's basically 25 to 55 is where for my audience, at least, I'm seeing 50, 60, 70, 80, over 90% is 25 to 54.
Yeah.
I'm finally a 1%er.
Did it, Bobby. You're in. You did it. If you click on it deeper, Jeremy, it'll literally just say Bobby. If you click on that section, it'll literally just say Bobby.
He's the only one.
It'll show his picture if you expand it a little bit.
My 65 plus years is 1.2%. That's it.
Oh, I'm not a 1%er. Okay, that's good.
This one,
Not yet.
male is 95.8%, female 4.2. I don't know if I believe that. The one that surprises me though is my US audience is 51% and Canada 35. So, and on the podcast, it's like 75% US, 20% Canada. So
That's fair ratio though.
I'd be curious how
We're
much of
10%
that
their population, right?
I'd be curious about that though, because it also takes into account. So this is for your overall metrics, right?
yeah.
I'd be curious how much of that was influenced from when you had Jeff Wilson on, because his was the single biggest chunk in one video, like a really nice chunk compared to, because even if you take the next couple, it's as much as the next 8 or 9 videos combined. And if his audience is predominantly US, that would definitely have bumped up that number, at least a fair bit in one shot.
Yeah, that's, I guess,
a relative piece of the pie. As a relative piece of the pie.
he's got a lot of Canadians on to watch his channel too, though.
I'm not saying no. I'm just saying it depends on where his demographics play from. So I'll just answer this here. We're mostly doing it as an intellectual exercise hockey guy because it's the same thing. You can't learn. But the reason I bring up, this is one of those questions I'm not asking because I want an answer, because we can't get one. The reason I'm asking the question is you have to consider how difficult it is to define as a metric of when you're trying to figure out what this population base is. The fact that we can't think of what the best definition would be to fill that gap in, and the fact it could be transient, you could have this number that would jump up and down, is relevant when we're thinking about that market. Because then what you're really looking for, and we'll go back to that float versus population thing. If instead of calling float and population, we say, okay, amount of collectors, quote unquote, we'll use quotation marks here, and we'll say active collectors, maybe people who participate in the market regularly, maybe people who are on eBay, maybe people who are on Instagram doing all this stuff, and people who are buying stuff on ComC. We'll use all the different main platforms, whatever you consider them to be. That audience has got to be smaller. That's going to be a subset of this overall big hobby group, but it's going to get smaller and smaller as you go. Because we already know that the biggest YouTube channels right now for sports cards tend to be box breakers for the most part. Because there's an audience for it. People like it, but they tend to get the single biggest audience, where like regular sports card channels, they can draw an audience, but it's very small compared to box breakers and stuff like that. People like opening wax. So that's an audience. And some people just watch, by the way. So are they collectors because they don't actually buy any product, but they just watch the content?
I watch vintage breaks all the time.
Sure. But that's the thing. Does that count? Like, would you consider them collectors if that's all, if the participation in the hobby is watching the content and not actually buying into it?
No, I don't buy into it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, those
there,
metrics become impossible to compile because of those reasons. We don't know. Yeah. And that's the point I'm trying to get at, Mike, is that in terms of dollars, so if you take the whole collector pie, whatever you consider that to be, how many people actually spend money shrinks that pie. How many people spend more than a couple of dollars a year or whatever, or a couple $100 a year, that pie shrinks more. Eventually, that number is.
Let's define it right now, just for the purposes of our discussion. What's the, and I think you have to use money, really. What's the, I think, but it's up for discussion. What would the minimum amount of money someone would need to spend in the hobby on an annual basis be to consider them to be in the hobby?
Let me get you to take a stab at that, Dave. I have a thought, but let me get you to take a stab at it first.
And this, like everybody said, it can be determined a bunch of different ways, because you can have somebody that spends maybe a couple $100 in a regular year going to card shows in their area and just leafing through, like maybe they do team sets, maybe they just collect teams, and that's like a 20 for $1 box. And that's what they do each show, each month, or whatever the case may be. So they could be dropping $50, but they could have a 3-row, a 4-row box of cards that they picked up during the year. Most people, that's not their cup of tea. But for this person that's collecting the teams or whatever it may be, that could be and they're not spending thousands upon thousands of dollars, but they're still adding a large lump sum of cards to whatever they define their collection to be, no matter what it is in the eyes of the other collectors in the hobby. So again, if I had to say, I mean, at 500 would be maybe near the low end a year, but I mean, even $100 for those type of collectors, that for them, that's a lot of money, but they're getting for them the best bang for their buck.
Yeah, because even I agree. Like we could say, well, it's $500, but that person who spends $100 or $50 a year is like, wait, what about me? I collect. I just don't collect like you collect or something.
Yeah.
Totally valid, right? So maybe it's so is the question, how many cards a year do you buy? Like, do you buy 1, 5? Like, if you're a kid and your mother buys you a couple packs of cards at the store at Tim Hortons 3-4 times a year, are you in the hobby?
No.
That's the reason why that becomes a really interesting threshold, because previously here, Hockey mentioned the Tim Hortons ripping packs. I go, okay, it's Tim Hortons now, but back when I was younger, it was the McDonald's. So let's say you get somebody who literally the only time they ever buy any hockey cards at all is just the McDonald's, and their parents buy them a couple of packs. They open them up, sort them a little bit, and then they get thrown in a box, and we don't talk about it again until next year. I would have a tough time considering that, a collector per se. It's not, I'm not disqualifying you, but it would be very difficult for me to get you in there. If you were going to try to define a number, it's tricky to do, but for me, I feel like it would be anything over the equivalent of like one moderately priced hobby box. If you can get past that equivalent in a year, I would be comfortable with that. Only because, okay, using the Tim Hortons example, what if your parents buy you a hobby box of Upper Deck Series 1 at Christmas? You open it, you sort it, and again, you throw it in the closet. Are you a collector still at that stage?
No.
How about Paul's comment where he says, what about traders? Some people don't spend a dime, just trade. Well, that's an interesting comment, because sure, they're still in the hobby, but the companies don't care, because you're not really contributing to the bottom. You're not buying anything that's new, right? Like you're just sort of, you're not adding to the bottom dollar. There's no money changing hands. There's no financial metrics. So you're kind of like it's almost a moot point. You're still in the hobby, of course. Of course you're in the hobby. Of course you're a collector. But I like that comment by Karvin. Any repeat purchases count, right? Because now you know that you've actually shown a pattern.
That plays into what I was saying, though. That's why I use that analogy about opening one hobby box one time a year. Mm-hmm. To me, that it's not even the dollar amount, because at that stage is that you're not actively participating. You're basically you go in, you have a quick cup of coffee in it, because Karvin's saying here, if they have a binder protect the cards, again, like, okay, so I will say what helps in that comment, the second half, if you went through the trouble of setting up a binder and doing that, rather than just putting it aside and not looking at it again for a year until the next box gets open, I think that at least adds a more active element to it. Maybe the key is there is a dollar amount that kind of plays into it, but it's also the active element. It's if you're just passively opening a couple of packs and again it gets put away, I can't really treat you as a quote unquote collector, almost irregardless, because if you open a box of the cup and the stuff just gathered dust in your closet, are you really a collector? But it was an expensive box. So now the dollar amount doesn't help you, but it was one time a year and it's inactive. It's literally just sitting there gathering dust.
Yeah.
I think the minimum really for most people, it's $10 a week. You buy a couple cards, you buy a pack, so you open that up. 500 to 1,000. I think you're not serious, but you're active and you're going. I think that's fair. Dave said 500, right? But that's US, so.
Well, either or. I
think this comment here, though, is covered by when I said gathering dust. So if your family can't afford more than once a year, so be it. That's not a crime. But if you're passionate about it, maybe you go and sort through your cards, the rest of the year while you're waiting for the next box. To me, that's still legit. It means there's still an active element to it, and you're taking care of your cards, so to speak.
Even if the level of activity is that you buy or receive one hobby box every Christmas, let's say. Now it's a pattern. Every Christmas I get a box of cards. I collect cards. I'm not going to tell you don't if that's what you do, right? Of course that you collect cards. Yeah. But you collect it at a much slower pace than some of the fanatics out there.
Yeah. I think, but I also think the fact that you're going through the trouble of actually, sorting through your cards or doing some activity that's hobby related, I think that's still, you are still participating in some level, because if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. Like, that's okay. The rip cases and flip it all.
Good question. But when I posed it earlier, it wasn't more or less the collector investor thing. It was more like how many people are in the hobby, because you're still in the hobby. You might not be a collector. And I think that's kind of what the metric that I was curious about, how many collectors / people are in the hobby.
Yeah, for sure.
But then from there, it would be nice to be able to divide to really like zoom in and see how many of those people are collectors versus just pure rip and flip or just flippers or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I would say maybe the best way to look at it from that example there is like, okay, well, if you're ripping cases and flipping all, are you collectors? We didn't collect anything. You opened a product and sold it. You didn't actually physically collect anything. Now, if you retain some cards in, well, then we changed that a little bit. Now this one's fun for me, Dave. You didn't tell him, did you? We had this discussion as we were defining this. We were literally thinking about this individual's like, not really a collector, Dave. No, I don't think so. I think we're very clear on this issue now. That's a hard no.
But you know what? If you spend money every second year, that's still a pattern. That's still like Karvin said earlier, it's still a repeat purchase. You're still spending money, pumping money into the hobby one way or another. Even if it's only every 2 years, you're just a much slower collector than the average, let's say.
No, I get you. Yeah, I get you. So you can see more of Broncos 79 Steve and the non-collector and Dave the collector on the Instant Revolution podcast every Tuesday. This one will come back at some point, Dave. You know this now.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Paul, absolutely. You are 100% a collector for watching YouTube content. Without question.
You're part of the hobby community.
But Paul, when you sit through 6-hour live streams virtually, I think we'll give you a pass. We'll give you a pass. You get an exemption. You're in. Are you in the hobby if you have zero interest in cards but buy sealed wax to scalp? Well, that kind of goes back to the flipping thing, though, right? Like you could have bought anything than just
it's like saying to the ticket scalpers outside of an arena, are you really going to the games or you're not? You're not actually going to the games. You're just a middleman, right? So to me, the answer is no. You're not. What is that? Are you in the hobby? Well, you are inserting yourself in there, but it's like for all the people that are in the hobby, the people that are buying it from the scalper, they're the ones who are actually consuming the cards. You're not consuming anything. You're just a wholesaler.
I would say you're in the hobby economy.
Yes.
If we say the hobby economy, there is an aspect that you are participating in the hobby economy.
You're in the hobby. You're just not consuming anything.
Correct. It'd be the same as saying, like, are you a video game, video game fan or video game player if you buy up PS5s and then sell them? The PS5s just stack up in your wall and then you just sell them for a profit.
Hockey Guy 206, he nails it right there. Scalpers are just another layer of distribution. It's exactly what it is. They're inserting themselves in between retail and consumer and saying, hey, hold on, I'm going to take a monster markup because the market's allowing for it and the big box stores allow it.
Okay, so Karvin says that's why it's 50 million people. He says, Paul, yes, you're part of the community, which is true. One of the most interesting people knows is a scalper. Yep. I like how Mike is trying to encourage the live streams to go as long as possible. It's like, I don't see you putting any work for it, Mike. It's like you're trying to get other people to do the work. You got to put in some work yourself,
Well, Paul C was one of the inspirations for me starting the After Hours show.
That's right. He likes the longer content. He's into it. Yes, Bobby? You're on mute. Bobby, I think you're still on mute.
Hey,
we can hear you better now. Go ahead.
I am Karvin's answer to that right there.
Yeah. Okay.
For new product.
That's fair.
But at that point, you're consuming. You're a consumer at that point still.
Oh yes, of course.
I would say also you're participating in the hobby in the sense that you're creating content because you're doing the books and doing things. So it's like there is a part of the hobby that you're participating in from the creation perspective as well.
I'm going to start my own show then.
Exactly.
Content creator here.
You got to go with a content creator, Bobby. That's what it is now. Dave, you want to tell him? Do you want to tell him? We're back to the Steve problem here. I don't know. What do you think, Dave? Is Brian a collector?
The guy's got to be. I mean, he watches so much content. He has to be a collector. If not, what are you doing?
Should we give him the Paul C exemption for participation?
Of the hobby knowledge.
What's that?
They're a collector of hobby knowledge.
Look at you finding a loophole.
Wow, that was awesome, Dave.
Dave, see, this is why we bring you on. All right. Yeah, so they would say they're not collecting, but they contribute more money. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Like I said, to me, they're part of the hobby economy. Like that gives you that's a caveat where like, hey, that works. Why not?
They're collecting profits, not cards.
Fair. 10-minute videos annoy him. Well, there you go. These aren't 10-minute videos, so there you go.
What was that? That was Karvin. But if they take those hobby dollars out of the hobby, does it count?
Oh, okay. Hold on. If this is
No,
that
it's hobby, it's hobby. Can't change that, right?
Yeah, because once the scalper sells the product, they take that money and they go buy something. Well, if I sell a single card and I pay my hydro bill with it or something,
yes,
you know.
that's right. Yeah, so it's one of those things like they participate in the hobby economy, but temporarily. But as soon as the dollars that come out of it go out, then it's not really adding to that hobby economy anymore.
Unless it's reinvested in the hobby.
Exactly. Yeah. That is right. Yeah, if they don't do the collect, they sell everything back to the store and give away the card. Sure. Look at that. Nice. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a loose definition. It's an interesting intellectual exercise. I enjoy those because it's like it's too hard. It's a very fluid concept because a lot of people can participate at different levels. Again, you can be part of the hobby economy and not actually be a hobbyist. And you can also be someone who participates in the hobby, but like you do it to the limited means that your means allow. And you do the best you can. And again, I have much easier time calling the kid who opens a couple of packs once a year, but then is constantly sorting through the cards and maybe goes on sites and looks up different content because they're interested. They just can't afford to play. And I'm not going to discount them as participating because you're participating as much as anybody to the best of your ability. And to me, that's okay.
Good night to Hockey in Halifax.
Yep. Have yourself a good night.
You're exactly right. As I have a lot of friends who are sort of historians, and they do have a collection, but they buy a card once a year maybe. But they're still in the hobby, and they research and share their information. It's amazing. So Dave's right. You just don't have to always have the money, and you know,
that's a good reason, Brian.
Yep. No, that's fair. Hopefully you get better. We'll never shame anybody for not having the money to play because it's not a cheap game to play in anymore. So we're not going to knock anybody for that. That's perfectly fair.
What Karvin's last comment that you just took down? If I
this one,
yeah, collectors are just they're a segment, maybe
they're a subset. To me, they're a subset.
Yeah, a subset, and maybe the most important subset of the hobby as well. A lot of people, I know, a lot of collectors would say they are.
Yeah,
it's an industry that started in '89, didn't it, Carlos?
What's that?
Sports card industry.
Well, I'm told it started in 1989. Before that, it didn't exist as an industry. And I believe vintage starts at 89. I believe that's the other one.
But it's definitely an industry. There's no doubt about that.
It's an industry. That's right. Let me just look here. Yeah, they keep on to purchase more, but it takes fun to buy for non-hobby related stuff. Well, if you're saying that some gets spent on hobby and some doesn't, well, some money's at least circling back into the economy. Some of it's still circulating. So I think that's fair.
50 million's a good number. I like that.
I think it's plausible, especially with a lot of those other markets.
Well, because it's not obviously not just the U.S. And I wonder, the U.S. is what, 350 million or so people. So it's more than 10% of that, but I can't see it being, it's obviously not 50 million Americans, but it's right. Probably how many of those 50 are American? How many are Canadian? Interesting.
Yep. So let me throw one more out of this at you guys. Again, it's in the same vein. It's just open-ended, but this is something I was thinking about since Bobby brought up the 89 because I've had some fun with that. But let me ask a question. It's been discussed before where you think the line is where vintage is. And I have no problem with a lot of the different numbers I've heard, but I do ask a question. And I use the comic book example because they've had their own kind of challenges with it. I got this here. Yep, because left to
don't they use Bronze Age for comics?
That's right. But the reason why I think that's interesting, let me explain why I think this is interesting. With sports cards, we have this thing. We have the pre-war segment, right? Because that covers basically the beginning of cards till about approximately 1947, give or take. Because 48 Bowman is kind of where we do that cutoff line where we enter to the next era, more or less. Because pre-war is basically before 48 Bowman.
The war, yeah, of course, yeah.
So that's what we use as like a cutoff. So right now, anything before 48 Bowman, effectively, obviously there's some sets that also fall in there, approximately is pre-war. So we got that area covered. Then we have like this 40s into 50s and 60s gold. We've got the monopoly era after 1955, but then you have Bowman and Topps as the main manufacturers. Topps gets its monopoly, which gets broken after 1980. Then we roll into 81 where you add those other manufacturers and that goes in there. But one of the numbers that gets thrown out is 89 is like a cutoff for vintage. And I don't have any moral opposition to it, but here's where think it gets a little complicated, because here's the question. Okay, so let's say we go with 89. So that's 31 years approximately before we do the cutoff. What happens then when we reach, 2040? How long can we keep that gap in there? Because it becomes this weird thing. The reason why the Bronze Age, the Silver Age, and all that worked is because it gave you a couple of dividing lines.
Yes.
With sports cards, it gets really complicated.
But is it just sports cards are we talking here? Because the hobby is not made up of sports cards alone.
No, I'm with you.
We have to accommodate that for a little bit there.
That's fair, but I would say cards at least has some defining times where something specifically changed.
If I can speak, I think we talked about this before with the gum, and when they stopped putting gum in, and it started to be more of a business or the industry. I think the industry started in 1989, 1990 really.
And Bobby, do you think that because that's when really they took the gum out, so the cards were the main product more or less for the first time?
Of course.
I'm trying to think back. I could be wrong, guys. Maybe Dave, maybe you remember. I remember opening a box of 91 Topps baseball, and I thought it had gum in it.
It does. Some of them do.
Okay.
Still.
I thought so, yeah.
But
so
like
Topps is the flagship brand of that era still. So like they hadn't fully abandoned. There was a changeover. So let's use 89 for example. The reason the business breakup is one that gets thrown out there, and I understand it. It's totally a thing. Is Upper Deck came out and they introduced kind of a more premium product, and I understand it. My only thing is, yes, they did, but it took years for the impact to fully hit the other parts of that same industry, because Topps obviously still had gum into the early 90s, and if you take 1990 Topps, it was virtually the same type of setup with the same cardboard stock. 1991 was the 40th anniversary. A logical time for them to upgrade? Nope. They kept the cardboard stock the same, kept the gum. 92 is when I think they dropped the gum. But you could also see that they started doing like a semi-gloss on one side and a lighter paper on the other side. 93, now you're getting closer. It's not quite fully there. Not by 94, you've got a gloss card. So it took a couple of years. And then 91, they came out with Stadium Club. And then by 93, they came out with Topps Finest. So now you've got the super premium product. So Topps responded, but it took a couple of years for that for them to bother making those kind of wholesale changes.
Yeah, but you had all the other manufacturers coming in too, Score, ProSet, all the other companies were there. They didn't have gum.
Yeah, no, I get you. But the thing that gets
top is the basis because they were the leader, I guess, at that time. But, Peachy too. I don't know. They stopped too.
Paul's comment. I think 91, 92 was the last year of gum for Topps. Nuh-uh. We're all Topps Heritage 2000, 2001, 1, 2, 2, 3.
No, that's fair. But since they were doing Heritage, it was like a throwback. Like we're talking about the standalone gum.
I liked it. I bought it. It was great.
I thought it was good, and the gum was decent for what it was. I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
But the reason I asked the question isn't because, like I said, I don't have any more opposition. It's fine with me. But at a certain point then, okay, so right now it covers a 31-year span. So I guess after 89, we'll call it modern. I guess we'll call it, like, you've got your vintage and then you got modern. Sure. We'll call it modern. Sure. So then in 2040, do we just keep extending modern forever?
No, it changes. I'm sure it's going to change more.
What happens in between?
It's going to have to be narrowed down. It's not going to be.
There's going to have to be a segmentation somewhere in there.
Vintage and modern are not. There's not enough. We need more.
Yes.
Well, nobody's ever stood up and did anything. I've done a lot in the hobby.
I'm really posing the question because I can see that becoming an issue down the road. Because even if you say, "Oh, we'll call it about a 30-year cutoff," I'm just giving an arbitrary number. Even if you call it like a 30-year cutoff for modern, that means by 2040, 2010 before 2010 becomes vintage.
Yeah, of course.
That's a bit problematic, right? Certainly. It would be a little odd.
I think on Jeremy's show, I said vintage is used in wine. It could be 2 years old. It's still a vintage of, 2019, whatever. I just feel that I'm sure somebody will come up with something. Or, we're sitting right here, right now. You could create something as word gets around, especially social media.
Start a divider. I think it's something though that has to be considered a little bit more because you're going to run into a problem where you can't. The pre-war era gets away with it because there was a very big difference between pre-Second World War and you had all those breaks in production. It's a very distinct era in the way they did their stuff.
Most certainly.
And then that era basically through the 40s, 50s into the early 80s had a certain thing because then once the traditional reason why you went vintage before about 1980, 81 was because then you brought in Donruss and Fleer. And it changed things that suddenly you didn't have a monopoly anymore. It was a big shift in the hobby at that time and led into the first boom period. So that was kind of a momentous time where it went. If you want to use Upper Deck 89, fine. I still kind of prefer the 80 cutoff, but I can live with 89. But then what comes after is our problem because there's no clear, you need a couple more dividers in there. Otherwise modern becomes a 60-year window.
I've kind of, to me,
pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Sure.
For me, the way I define it for myself and my approach in the hobby is vintage ends after 89, 90. And then the next phase isn't modern. It's called the 90s. And the 90s included the junk wax era, and it also included the rare insert era, or the late 90s. And then we get into modern when we start. We had the introduction of patches and autos or jerseys and autos in the 90s, but come early 2000s, now we've got thicker cards. We've got patch RPAs. Or we didn't have an RPA really until like 02. I think Karvin can jump in and correct to the earlier football product, whenever that was. But mainstream, at least hockey and all that, it wasn't until 02 Upper Deck Premier Collection. So to me, you've got vintage up until the end of the 80s. You got the 90s, and you got the modern era that starts basically like 2000, 2002. And then within the modern era, you've got like almost like early modern, mid modern, and now there's the people refer to ultra modern when they're talking about the last 2 years.
That's what I'm trying to say is that it's a weird situation where you create all this sliding scale. So I like that Ritchie's kind of in line with me, although 90s junk wax is tricky because you were already getting junk wax by the end of the 80s. So like by the end of the 80s, mid to latter portion of the 80s, you were already in the junk wax era. So it's not just 90s.
You were, Carlos, and I agree, but the structure of the product, the packaging, the wax papers, the cards per pack, it was all still the same. It wasn't until we saw foil packs and plastic packs and all that, which was really 89 with 89 Upper Deck, I guess.
Yeah, and that is a reasonable cutoff. But the reason why I say it's tricky is because at that point, Upper Deck was the only one doing it. It took a couple of years for the other manufacturers to start incorporating some of those changes into their product. So it's basically just Upper Deck doing that for a couple of years there. And then Stadium Club came out, Top started to upgrade their stock. It took a couple of years. They did eventually do it.
So it's like a transition. It's like a transitional period.
It wasn't like an immediate, we flip the switch and suddenly there's, full color bleed on both sides.
But the switch was flipped. It just took a couple of years for the lights to go on in a couple of other companies, sort of thing. So I think it was the beginning of it was with that 89 Upper Deck baseball. So it's kind of, there's a couple of years of gray area in between each of these, right? There's a bit of overlap along the way.
That was just baseball. It wasn't hockey.
I understand, but it still kicked off hockey. Hockey was the very next year.
Yeah, was it basketball? No,
the very next year, right? But no, it started in baseball and then it made its way. Just like things start in the U.S., they make their way up to Canada.
It takes time. I understand. Well, it's sort of when gum goes and wax goes. We're right in that, 1990-ish. So we can really break it off and just put it there. Wax wrappers are gone. Gum's gone. Dave, did you want to say something? Sorry.
I'd say 89. Because of Upper Deck, as we've said. But when you have 90 Leaf baseball, and you jump to the Stadium Club in 91, and then you have 92 Bowman, and then 93 is Finest, and then Flair. You have, again, it's not the 1 year jump. You can see the progression going up. And I thought pre-war was 91 with the Iraq War, but I guess I'm learning something new.
Wrong war.
No hablo inglés, Dave. No hablo inglés.
But yeah, that's because again, I wouldn't do it so much as the gum. The quality of the card. You go from that generic, where when you think of Topps Chrome and the warping they have over time, you look at those 80s cards. If you have just a little moisture, they do that same bending. everything was upgraded in that early 90s. And then it was like an arms race, literally. It's like, who's going to put out the best insert, who's going to put out the best base card, the most color photography, the most stats, the most foil, the most innovation. And that's when it really, I mean, it kicked in from just like, to wow, what the hell's going on in this hobby we're in? It's amazing. It's like we're living the Jetsons' future.
Battles of the brands, right, Carlos?
It was, yeah. Yeah, Bobby sent me an article that was titled "Battle of the Brand." But then, Dave, here's the thing. I'm open to the timeline, but here's my question, and it's still the same thing, and it's what Jeremy alluded to earlier, and it's the same thing I'm thinking. We're going to need subsequent dividing lines. Okay, so let's say we go with 89. Great. What is the next little mini era called? Because a lot of folks like the idea of decades. Okay, fine, but then 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s.
No, we stop at the 90s. 90s can be its own individual.
What it's called?
What's that?
The insert revolution era.
Wow! Hashtag branding. that was subtle, Dave. Like a sledgehammer to the face. Very subtle. That's well done right there. But no, the thing is, and again, this is something that is gonna. I think a lot of people aren't even really thinking about that one. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I had the foil era. I like that.
It could be. That's the thing. Like you could call it a number of things. You could get creative because people don't like generic sounding names, but you do need to have some feature. That the whole thing with the pre-war is that you had world wars to create a natural dividing line, and then for a long time, vintage for a lot of folks was that pre-80 era because you had when you went to the three manufacturers, even 81 if you want to go there, but you had something that changed. If you want to go 89 because of the more premium product and the full wrappers, great. But then you still need what the next cutoff is. You want to use RPAs and game use memorabilia? Sure. But then what becomes the next thing? Because now those have been well in effect for some time.
Well, one thing I did change through my books and through articles and being in the hobby is I took the word oddball out of there. Dave trinkets and Amit with the knickknacks, all these little things. And oddball was such a weird word because it could mean food issue, could mean anything. And I didn't like that word. And I broke it down to merchandise and kept it really there. It is merchandise that was issued, food issue or merchandise, but not oddball because oddball was such a big, and now we don't call it oddball anymore. A few people still do and still, of course, with the trinkets and whatever else, but it's, you can influence and change. And those are the changes I like to make because it just fell into one big dump bin, and I didn't want that. I think it kind of disrespected the stuff.
The term oddball just isn't a nice term for like I'm an odd. You collect oddball stuff, kind of makes you an oddball.
Well, and in fairness, most collectors are odd, so I think that's fair.
First to admit it. Yeah.
So Charles says he doesn't consider 95, 96 and up junk wax, which is an interesting perspective. I like that Charles is weighing in on this one, so that's kind of interesting.
I don't either.
Yeah, and that's fair. I don't know about that one. I'm not too familiar with that one. So he wants to call 95, 96 and up the dawn.
Okay.
It's very dramatic. It's very dramatic.
The Panini era, especially with basketball, with their initial, because that Prism set has gone bonkers. That would be like your next era. You come from the 90s, you go through the 2000s up until what, like 11, 12-ish before Panini got in the game. And then that's when I'd start like the next generation or whatever you'd have. Because that 2000s was really game used heavy or patch heavy. Everything would sell more because you had that auto patch, the RPA. Everything was geared around game used or jersey cards in that era or that decade.
The game. So sorry, did you start that off by saying like the game used era?
You could have it at the 2000s into like 2000.
Well, the game used era was like 96, give or take. So it'd be like 96.
But when you have the one per pack type with Pacific.
Okay, well that's different. That'd be like the mass game used era.
I know. But Pacific going away from all their inserts, and they wanted to be game used more so than pretty much anyone else. So that's what helped them sell, is that chance to have the game used in every pack in some of their products. That's what their downfall was.
I want one of Karvin's prototypes.
I was going to say I like the game used era terminology because it allows you to start in 96, which means that it allows you to then take vintage to say 89, 90, whatever. And then you've got the junk wax era, which now can stand alone. So vintage, junk wax, game used era. And then at some point, maybe it's a couple of years ago, it's like ultra modern or something like that.
Yeah, you'll have to find another dividing line there. The good news is with the game used, you can at least pinpoint it around a certain year. You have an innovation that you can point to and say, okay, this was a completely different type of card at the time. Which at least makes sense. I like that Karvin brought out broader cards. I don't know if you remember those, like from baseball, Dave. The broader or broader cards. They were like these. They were these unlicensed cards. I just like that it was. It's like I actually remember that from some early '90s like baseball checklists.
Well, that's my understanding, Carlos. That and Bobby probably not. To my understanding, a broader card is any card that's made in the. It's termed after someone's basement, I think, or I don't know.
But there was actually a brand that called them broader cards. Like
there is. I wasn't aware. I thought it was like a slang
early '90s thing. I remember broader being a thing, and there were a lot of different ones, or maybe they just put them in the checklist that way. Because I remember like a Jose Canseco that was like this weird generic, like with Jose Canseco in big bold, a color card, but it was an unlicensed card. It was very much one of those things. So it might have been a catch-all term for all of those because there were a lot of them out there at that time.
Well, everybody was kind of jumping in, right?
Yep.
The market was bustling.
Oh, here you go. Term from 89 to 90. So that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Just trying to get caught up here. Just look at the broader cards. Yeah. Similar old mother cookie card. Yes. Now you're thinking right. Now you're thinking right. Yeah. We're not going to come close to that one, but keep trying. I've been monitoring that. I wanted to bring it up because I thought that hobby discussion line I thought was an interesting thing, and I thought, with the crowd we have here, it'd be kind of interesting to get a couple of takes, because we all agree that there's going to come a time where it's like you can't keep stretching vintage forever, or if you stop at vintage, like okay, so what is the rest of it? Modern can't be 60 years. You can't do it.
Eventually it'll go to something like old. That's old vintage. Old vintage is up till 89. Right? Then there's new vintage up until 2010, and then there's modern.
If you're not thinking of the better names now, you're going to end up with something like that.
Yeah.
Vintage Part 1. It's like this is the Mesozoic era vintage.
Yeah, it's like antiques, the Art Deco, the Aang's era. They have their own eras, which is great. And if that point ever happens to me where we change vintage, I'm going to have to change my books.
Yeah, but at least the Art Deco in that was actually a certain design that could be classified. Like you look at them and go, at least if you know what Art Deco is, you know what it is. You can eyeball it and be like, that's Art Deco.
Ames is hard.
Yeah. Cards are a little trickier with that because sometimes it was a slow evolution. They didn't always do like these dramatic changes from year to year. That's why I use that early 90s baseball thing. It's like, no, if you go 89 tops, it looks very similar to 90 tops. It looks very similar to 91. 92, 93, 94, you started to see that big change over those 3 years. And you really, by 94, it's glossy on both sides. Full color, full bleed. It's like you look at 94 and you compare it to 89, you see a big difference. But in between, there was a slow changeover. Yeah, Topps had tons of prototypes, especially at different eras. They were playing around with it. Yeah, I think that's the underlying point, Brian, is that there's going to be a time where there are going to be some, like, let's say influential hobbyists who are going to have to kind of be like, all right, we got to take a stab at this for no other reason than it's going to become a bit of an issue down the line when we're trying to figure out how to divide these things. Well, we got to have Bobby have his chapter for his book. Like, come on, how are we going to do it?
Carlos, I would like to nominate Victor from the All Time Greats blog to take on the task once he's done defining rookie card. If he could please define the eras for us.
So your plan is to send him on the never-ending hopeless mission. He'll never come back and never get around to this one. Maybe we reverse it. Can you abandon the rookie card mission? Go after this one. You can actually get this one done.
We need you over here for a while.
Yeah, it's like, focus on this one, please. Could you do that? Yeah, that sounds fair. But no, I think that's good.
I'm gonna exit and say good night and thank you for having me, Carlos, and fellow temporary panelist. Nice to see you guys.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate the clarification and your contributions as always. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the opportunity to clarify that misunderstanding from last night. And good night, guys. I'll catch you all soon.
Sounds good. Have a good night. Take it easy.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everybody in the chat.
Sounds good. So that's going to be one thing, actually, I want to make sure as Jeremy goes off, I want to make sure we make something clear. We'll always leave it open because when we're talking about it, we're going to interpret based on what we hear.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things we'll have a conversation. But if someone wants to come and clarify or, hey, correct us on it, do it. It doesn't, you don't even have to come on. If it's something, if you're in the chat or you're listening or you know somebody, hey, ping them up. And here's the thing. I have no objection to then subsequently posting a correction or something. If, hey, I talked to so-and-so and they clarified that this is what they meant based on it, I don't mind that.
Mhm.
That's a transparency thing. Like, I will only tell you what I think based on what I'm hearing. And that's why I said, like, and that's why we were only talking about a live stream that you can go watch. If you go watch the same live stream and you come to a different interpretation, that's fine. But that's why it works, because you can go watch it and you can say, oh, Carlos, that was completely different than my understanding. Okay. What did you see?
Yeah. Well,
And
you
then we can-
provided a great service this way, really, because then he was able to hop on and get it on video. And
Yeah.
I think it rectified anything that was going on in other people's minds who might have been watching at that time.
Plus, you guys got bonus. You know, I hopefully I don't get flagged. You guys got my bonus rock song from my cell phone going off. I was like, who the heck's calling me right now?
And who the heck is the band?
That one was
Couldn't hear it clear.
there's a couple I threw in
What
there.
did you say, Dave?
I said trapped headstrong.
No, it's not Trapped Headstrong. That'd be funny though. I like your reference. That's a good one.
Tom McDonald.
Yeah. No, not exactly.
He does rock and roll.
Yeah, he does, but it's the thing is, it's been so long since I put it on here. Now I have to think about it. I have to hear the rest of it. I can actually tell you though. So real quick while I'm glancing there.
What kind of music do you like, anyways, Dave?
A
You're
lot.
a 90s guy. Hmm?
A lot. Rap,
Well,
older rap. Not like a Meat. I'm not like in the EPMD and a Tribe Called Quest. More of the Snoop and
so you got my dope MC reference then.
Yes. But I basically like everything. I can listen to pretty much any and everything as a teenager, that was not the case. I was a dick and I'm just gonna listen to rap. That's it. And I've gotten more into metal, more into like some country, some classical. I mean,
Ramstein.
it matters the mood. So I mean, if I just want to listen to stuff, it's classical or something with a lot of instruments because it's just soothing. I don't have to worry about listening to lyrics or any of that stuff. It's just the melodies and.
Gotcha.
That's fair. So I can answer the question. It was it's a song called by Parkway Drive called "The Void."
Mm.
I
Yeah.
heard The Void. I didn't know it was Parkway Drive. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one's the one because I remember putting it on there. But it had been so long since I was like, I know it's gonna be probably something like that. I just wasn't sure. As soon as I looked up the name, I was like, yeah, okay, I know what it is now.
I grew up with hippie music and it was hippie time, really. But rock and roll.
I could listen to Dimmu Borgir.
Okay.
I could
Back in 1 second, guys.
Gordon Lightfoot.
Love them.
Then listen to like Celine Dion, and then
What's with all the Canadians?
I'm near Canada. I'm just like a couple arm lengths away.
Celine, Yeah, there's some good stuff. Country has never been my thing, but I mean, I did listen to some rap through the years, in the earlier times, and some of the later times. Diversity, just what's out there. I grew up through so many different eras. There's the '80s were just it's crazy, but
Yeah,
growing through the '70s rock and the late '60s kind of. I don't even know, Flower Child kind of music. It was really interesting. I have good memories going back to when I was about 4. So
love Simon and Garfunkel. I mean, I can listen to them all day.
Yeah, they're really good. I do like that stuff.
Especially if I'm driving like a long distance, I want to listen to either country or like the old stuff, just because I want to just sing along and just have something that's upbeat. I don't want to be driving 75 miles an hour and listening like Tupac screaming and yelling and getting all worked up. So everything you can mellow it out. And
Yeah, KRS One going down the highway, right?
Yeah. Hammer Too Legit to Quit.
Oh my God, we're on MC Hammer now. I see.
No, we just came to that and it ended.
Okay, gotcha.
Kansas, there we go. Carry on, wayward son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always rely on the chat to have a lot of references. Yeah, I thought I would answer that question though, since sometimes it's good to be like, no, this is what it is. I do tend to listen to a lot of rock. That tends to be kind of my thing. I do listen to a lot of metal, to be honest with you. I find it relaxing. But one thing that I've always thought was interesting when I listen to music is I've gotten to the point where I almost never listen to lyrics on anything. I actually treat the singer almost as another instrument. So for me, either the singer plays, basically they complement the song or they detract from it. And those are the kind of the things that I listen to, because if I'm really not listening to what you're saying, but that's why I did that. But I'll bring up sometimes from time to time. That's why I talked about like Matthew Good and Matthew Good Band, is that was one of my favorites for many years. And I'll go back and listen to it, and I still remember a lot of those songs. I do remember some of those lyrics only because I heard them tens of thousands of times over the years. And he has a lot in his lyrics. Like if you actually go dig into it, he put a lot of meaning into them. But over the sands of time, they've kind of gotten lost to me, because I'll listen to it and sometimes I'll put the pieces together and he'll come up with a lot of analogies that are kind of interesting. We'll say a little bit odd from time to time, but he was also bipolar. So like you can definitively hear in the late 90s when he was bipolar, and sadly, that's when he made his best music, but also like he was out of his mind.
Yeah. Well, they say, most of the best people are usually, have something like that. They're on that edge of creativity and insanity.
But that's why I say, like, I'll enjoy it as long as the singer complements the music. If the singer's too loud and overwhelms the music, that's no good. If the mix of the instruments is so loud that the singer almost might as well not be there, that's not that great.
Well, you like a song when you hear it for the first time, and when you do, it's usually not because you even got the lyrics. 10 years after, sometimes I've heard a song and I didn't know the lyrics. You just kind of go, you know the melody, and that's about it. And but you're just going to the song because you like the song, and the lyrics seems to blend in whatever they are. Sometimes, if I had a rocking lawn chair, or if I had a rocket lawn chair, yeah, I got screwed up on a few of those ones. Anyways, kind of funny.
Yep. Well, if you ever want to have a laugh, and I see a couple of comments from Hockey Guy and Paul, and there's some good stuff on there that they're listing off. So we'll definitely get to that second. But I will tell you, if you ever want to laugh, I'm trying to remember which song it was. It might have been "Load Me Up" because Mike mentioned it. So it might have been "Load Me Up," but there was literally a lyric, and I remember it because it was so ridiculous. And there was a live album where he talked about it, where he was about to start the song, and he's like. And I think what he said is like, well, the good news about selling a lot of albums is that a lot of people enjoy the music. The bad news is you have a permanent record of your own idiocy. That was like his intro to it. He goes, because the lyric was, the devil's on Sugar Smacks at Radio Shack, turning the shit into solid gold. And everyone's like, what does that mean? And I don't think he can explain it. if you look up the song, it's like, that's literally the lyric. And you just look at it, Sugar Smacks, you say. Okay. So I would say these days, Hockey Guy, it tends to be a lot of Mastodon. Amorphous is one that gets a lot of play for me.
Rammstein.
What's that?
Rammstein.
Rammstein? Is that the one you're referring to?
Whatever it is.
I haven't really listened to too much of them. I agree with this statement. Yep. Oh, this is the one where I was looking for. Mike, load me up. Yep. I still enjoy it. It's one of those things I don't go back to it very often. I haven't listened to Amon Amarth, but I've definitely listened to Ghost. Slipknot, yep. I've listened to that. Megadeth, I've listened to that as well. Yep.
They call metal some of the stuff from the 70s that's just rock and roll. I think they called Van Halen a metal band, and I'm like,
well, at the time it was. Because the thing is, the definition. I don't get into you. Look, you want.
I went to the concerts. I grew up with them. That was my favorite band.
Yeah.
It was just rock and roll. It was the change of rock and roll. It was the 1989 era.
1989 era. It was Under Next Fault. But the thing is, like, you want to talk about these hobby definitions are complicated. Forget that. If you get into a music discussion with somebody talking about genres and subgenres and subgenres it's like, no. I won't even enter. It's like, no, this is too toxic for me. I'll stick to sports cards. It's like, aren't sports cards toxic too? But compared to that, no. They can't even agree on what metal is, what rock is, and
Sure enough.
the arguments never end. Oh my goodness. No, no, no. No, 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 no.
You got Zeppelin in 68 and 69 and they're rock and roll, but then Van Halen comes in, later in the 70s and they're metal. And so,
Pantera's a good one, Steve. Pantera's a good one for sure.
Amen.
Yep.
We've seen last year, not this last year, but 2019, my brother and I went down to Louisville to the Louder Than Life Festival, which was amazing, with 3 nights. And I think Louisville, and this is at the end of September, they had like record highs. So it was like 95 out there. You had, I don't even know how many people. I've got one screenshot from Instagram. I pinpointed where we were, which was about 20 rows from the right-hand stage in the front on the rail. And I mean, it went, I bet you, a mile back with people. But I mean, you had GNR, you had Rob Zombie, Phil Anselmo. Guar was on a side stage. Trying to think who else. Disturbed.
Okay.
3 Days Grace. The whatever conglomeration of Stone Temple Pilots, which I was very surprised in how good they were. This was post Weiland. God, who else was there? I'm trying to think. There's a couple bands with a woman, and this one was
bands with women. They exist. Yes, that's correct.
No, the thing I'm trying to think of who it is.
I did appreciate, though. I didn't think of them because I didn't think it fit in the same genre for me. But Disturbed is good. I like Disturbed and I actually enjoy 3 Days Grace. I enjoy a lot of their stuff. That was very good.
Super happy to hear that because I mean I'm thinking like 02, 03 when all that stuff came out.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'm just like, this is Chevelle was there, so I was happy to hear them. But I mean, there was like 12 bands on the main stage. Then you had the side stage that had like 4 or 5 bands a day, but you had the 2 big main stages there. Ice Cube was there. So it was just, I mean, I've got some videos up I think I took, but it's those concerts when you can get like 25, 30 bands, and if you like half of them, even a third, that's the stuff to go to because you're going to like what you like, but then you might find something you're not going to like or you don't know you like yet because you're like, yeah, I've heard of them. That's nothing. But then you listen in person, it's a completely different feel to everything, especially with the crowd just going nuts.
I think that's fair. I will say though, if I'm going to do in person, I prefer like the small gigs.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer sitting in a pub and just hanging out because sometimes I used to hang out with a bunch of buddies that played in a bunch of bands, so they would do a lot of like battle of the bands and stuff like that, and you get to listen to a lot of local bands, but some of them are pretty good. It's one of those things, and if they don't make enough money long term, they're not going to hang around very long. But if they're good and they have a CD, you buy the CD.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of those that I haven't listened to in a long time, but I could probably go back, and some of the stuff was pretty good. All things considered, they'd actually produce some decent stuff. Now, I wanted to grab this comment here. So can you apologize to Mike, Dave?
I
don't know what video he watched, but I think you should apologize just in advance. Just start there.
There's like 1,200 of them on there, so yeah.
One down. With Van Halen and Jump, I don't know how they can be described as metal.
Well, I think here's the thing. The joke we made about the genres thing is real, though. Like, but it's become this fluid, weird thing because you had to come up with all these subgenres. It became impossible. It really did become impossible.
I was around before all that happened, so there you go.
Yeah, but that's at a certain point, people became obsessed with the classification, and they would try to figure out how to put these people into these buckets.
I saw a metal breakdown. It was a video. It was really interesting where they broke it down to this is this metal and all these different names. I just went, wow, whoever thought there was that many? Acid metal, and it just went to, and then they said the different bands. I got to find that video again. It was awesome. Can't remember, but most of the guys were from Europe, Finland, and Sweden, and wherever else.
Yep. So let me grab Charles's comment here. So one band he'll never understand is Limp Bizkit. Charles, you're 14. This isn't a slide. I'm just saying, like at the time, the rap rock like hybrid thing was new.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the
Really
thing:
good.
I don't mind some of their songs. Now I won't run to listen to them first. But it's one of those things where, like, at the time you did it, mind you, then a bunch of other people also did the same thing. And Fred Durst himself is kind of a douchebag. So like he's got they're not likable. Let's put it that way. But for the time, it was a little bit different, and they had a run. And Dave can attest, like WWE loved Limp Bizkit for a stretch of time because they used a bunch of their stuff. And this right here is the right band at the right time. Like you hit the right time, you hit the right sound at the right time. That's just how it is. Yeah, and there are places around the world, where they could still tour if they wanted to, and I think they have. Like they've done some tours here and there, and it's years after they hit their peak. Here you go. If you can't relate, the song break stuff. One day you will. Okay, this was my favorite. So I've always gotten a kick out of this one, and I'll get your take on this one, Dave. It was years since I heard any Nickelback. I went back and listened. It's like it's generic, but it's not that bad. Like I've heard worse, infinitely worse.
Yeah,
like
they got hated on it for some reason.
What happened is they got too much play. What happened is How You Remind Me was played way too many times. That was the problem. But then they just became a whipping boy where everybody say, "Oh my God, bad like Nickelback." It's like, dude, it was generic rock at the time with the lead singer that sounds a certain way. If you don't like his sound, then you're not going to like him. It was just played too much. But it became a bunch of
competition, though. That's the problem at that time, right? In their genre.
But also at the same time, and this is what I always laugh, because some of the people that'll say that were people that were old enough to know better, and I'll be like, "You were the one requesting Nickelback on the radio, weren't you?" Yeah. It's like, don't lie to me. Thou protest too much, sir, because they don't get airplay if people don't actually listen to it. And they sold tons of that album. So where'd they go? Yeah. All you people hate it, but you bought the album.
Yeah.
I'm perplexed. That's all I'm saying. I'm very confused.
You hear a lot of that with like Creed too. That's another band that
time and place
wore out its welcome as well, though, too. I mean, they were just like huge, and then they just dropped off.
Sort of like some of the rookies coming up in hockey, are they getting over pumped? They can't do anything wrong.
So what you're saying is that we got to wait another cycle here, and then Nickelback is underrated? Is that the deal? They finally get the respect they deserve, Bobby. They finally get the respect they deserve.
Finally. Not underrated, but finally.
Finally. I, for one, am comforted to know that this day will come.
Now I can sell my card because it's finally respected.
That's the reason why I get so much a kick out of it, is that there was going to be a day that it was going to go in. Like, I don't know. Have a good night, Charles. Take it easy. But no, I've never gotten the idea, and maybe this is a good topic just to kind of end on. And this is this. I don't see the point in wasting a ton of energy in quote unquote hating a lot of those things. Music's always a good example to me, because if you don't like it, turn it off.
Mm.
Like really, if you don't like it, you don't have to listen to it. I can't see listening to it long enough that you get angry about it. Why would you get angry about something you don't have to listen to?
Why would you waste your time?
But the reason I say this plays into a lot of areas. Music's a good example, but why would you watch YouTube channels that make you angry? If you don't like it, don't watch it.
People like getting angry. That's the fun part.
In which case, then that's a different issue. But then I'm not going to listen to your complaint. I'm not going to take your complaint very seriously, because, well, you did it yourself.
Well, then you just put rant on it, and
then it's legit. That's right.
Then it's legit. Exactly.
That's right.
And that's what happens in the hobby. As much as I like and dislike some of the cards, it doesn't mean that I don't think I'm the bad guy here. I'm just trying to be honest as much as I can. And from an older perspective, not much older than you guys, but older, another decade at least, right? But a different perspective is always good.
He was 23. I don't know what you're trying to get at.
2 decades, 3, something like that.
There you go. That's fair. I think it's fair. But I think though, the reason why I have so much fun with it, Bobby, is that I don't have the energy to get that angry about just about anything. I don't have the energy in me.
Well, you're a little smarter than most at that point.
Yeah.
And we have to understand, there's a lot of weekend warriors on there, and they're just having fun. And that's their way of having fun. Like I said, people bust your balls for no reason. I got 3 guys always bust every time I post something on my Facebook page, they're just busting your balls on purpose, and they're snarky remarks. And I say, why do you always have to do that? Can you always joke? Why do you always do that? He just goes, oh, I was just having fun. I'm going, it doesn't look like fun every time you do it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to waste any more time. Delete out of the account. Bye. Because I don't have time to deal with that. It's fun to joke around once in a while, but every time it's just like, it was his job. It's just get tired of people. So, it's nice to be open-minded and have fun, but, sometimes you have to put your foot down.
I think that's fair. I think there comes a time and a place. So I'm looking here. I just want to see. I'm not going to wait.
No.
I don't pay enough attention to it. I like that Beck came up randomly. I don't know if it was meant to be for the guitar player or just in general Beck. I don't know.
I have his best hits over here somewhere.
I actually like Beck. Some of his stuff is very odd.
He's very odd.
I think there was an album called The Information, which is very interesting. And there is like, and one of those songs is basically just, I think it's 1,000 beats per minute or 1,000, BPE, and it just goes. Now the tune goes and then he sings over, but when Beck sings, he's not really singing. He's just kind of talk singing. it's kind of like, okay.
But it works.
But that's why I say the singer can either complement the song or can detract from the song. And if you're detracting from the song, I don't care if you have the most beautiful voice in the world, you're actually throwing me off. Somebody else could be like pretty average singer, but if it like fits, if it all sounds interesting together, then I'm like, okay, you know what? I can work with this.
Like
sure.
ZZ Top and the Grange. It must have been works.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Sounds good. All right, guys. So I think we'll call it here. I want to disappoint Mike. I'm going to make him so sad. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of this beer. But I think we'll call it a night tonight. And so it's Jeff Beck here. Okay, now I understand. At least now I understand you're clarifying. So I appreciate that.
Best guitarist in the world. Wow.
Yep.
I think
somebody doesn't listen to King Missile's most famous song. Go look on YouTube after you're done watching here and look up King Missile.
Nice. So I think
and then you can blame me next week.
I wouldn't miss the opportunity to get damned by Mike. It's too good.
No.
Hey, Mike, I already told you. You wanted a long live stream. You got to put in some of the work, buddy. You can't just sit here watching passively and be like 7 hours. No, I don't think so, sir. I don't think so. You got to do some damn work here. You can't expect Bobby, me, and Dave to just carry this for you. I think not. I think not, sir. Yeah. Plus Monday is the first day. Like we're properly back now with the new year, and I'm like looking forward to it. I know I've got a conversation booked, a meeting booked with one of my AVPs because we gotta talk about fixing a couple of things, and I've been preparing and I'm looking at my emails. I'm like, oh, okay. back to reality. The holidays are over.
It'll still be quiet out there though.
For a little while, yeah, I would say so. But we're basically just getting back up to speed. There's a couple of things I think I'm going to have to do. That's going to be a real thing.
Reinventing the industry.
Sort of. That's something I'll talk about offline. Sort of, but yeah. Yeah, Bobby's in the bullpen. Yeah. So thanks. So first of all, guys, I will say thanks, Mike. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. Brian, of course, hockey guy, Charles. Thank you all for joining in. Brian, I already mentioned. Just scanning through to see if anybody was in the last couple of comments as well. Paul, of course, always Paul. Thank you for hanging out. One more thing we'll do. Oh, here we go. Probably next Sunday, Brian. Although, you know what? Don't quote me on this. I'm going to work on. I was chatting already a little bit, and I might see if I can get Dave's co-host on Instant Revolution podcast, maybe on one of these live streams. Would be kind of fun. But if that's the case, it wouldn't be on a Sunday. We'd pick a different day. We'll work on it. We'll work on it. But normally Sunday's good. Sunday's kind of fun to end the week off, and it's a nice one leading into the new week. So I kind of like it. I like having that day as a possibility, but if another day works better, I will. You guys will. Once I figure it out, you guys, if you're subscribed to the channel already, if not, do that. But once you subscribe to the channel, I'll put in the placeholder ahead of time. So if you see that, you can basically set a reminder or whatever. And I'll usually, if you're on the Instagram, you'll know it'll be coming up. So I'll try to get one. We'll have one next week. It'll be either on Friday or Sunday, maybe both. If we're feeling ambitious, I have no idea. We'll just bleed them together. It'll be one big 4-day live stream. It'll be great. Yeah, we can live Mike's dream.
You have to pull up all the stops and get Karvin in here.
Could you imagine? It's like, so for the first segment, we're gonna have Karvin. So it'll be me and Karvin, and then I'll take a nap, And then Carvin will keep talking for about half an hour by himself. And then I'll come back and I'll be like, all right, for part 2, it's like, Bobby, you and I will hang out for a while, and then I'll get Dave on, and we'll just keep cycling through co-hosts until we run a couple of days. There you go. Dennis Eckersley. That is heady praise. That is heady praise. Heady praise. So thank you all for hanging out. The chat, as always, has been tremendous. I want to thank Dave for hanging out with me. I want to thank Bobby for popping in. I want to thank Jeremy for coming in. By the way, hopefully, if there's no other takeaway from this, and I already mentioned it, but I'm going to repeat it. Whenever you do anything, we'll always talk about the person who asked forever ago why we stick to stuff that's on video is because we can all refer back to the same thing. In this case, we got a clarification. And if you want to check, you can go back and see the video for yourself. And you can then interpret it however you wish. And now you'll know what we're talking about. That's why you don't talk about stuff that's out of school that you can't see.
It's hearsay.
But if it's on video, it's not hearsay. You can go watch it yourself and you can figure out if we're right or if we're wrong. And that's a win for everybody. He came in and clarified. I'm satisfied with that answer. Dave's satisfied with the answer. Bobby's satisfied with the answer. We're good. Now we understand. Just a misunderstanding. It's all good. Sounds
understood.
Good.
It's going to happen anyways. For sure. Eventually.
And we'll always ask the question when we think there's something to ask the question on. But we'll always leave room to get an answer. We'll always leave room to listen to the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key, is that we're not out here with pitchforks and, and torches. We're out here like, this is what I heard. This is what I think. This is what it sounded like. I don't know about that one. And then if it turns out that's wrong, okay, my bad. That's fine.
I don't think you were wrong. It was just misguided. We were all misguided. That's all.
Yep. Sounds good. So thanks, everybody. It is Monday on the East Coast. So have yourself a good Monday. Best of luck with the new week. We're now in the first real week now of 2021. Let's try to do a little better. Let's take a breath and see if we can do a little bit better here. And we'll leave the last word here. Heads on spikes. Yes. I prefer on pikes, but I'll take spikes or pikes. Either way, have yourselves a good night, and we'll catch you in the next live stream some point at the end of the week. Maybe Friday, maybe Sunday. We'll see. Thanks very much, everybody.
All righty.